Step into the heart of London, where history meets modern elegance in the city's most exquisite homes. Today on Homeworthy, we're counting down 4 of London's finest residences, starting with a charming Georgian cottage and wrapping up with a vibrant townhouse. You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. To shop items inspired by this and other Homeworthy episodes, be sure to check out the product links below for amazing furniture, accessories, and more.
Hi Homeworthy, I'm Natalie. Welcome to my home in West London. Come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. Before today's episode, click the join button below to support all of the storytelling we do on this channel. Our growing community of members help to directly fund more videos so we can capture these extraordinary homes from around the world. So join today to receive early and exclusive access to new Homeworthy videos.
Hi, I'm Natalie Tredget. I'm an interior designer, and you are in my home in West London. We have been in this home for about 7 years. We ended up in this particular area because we love tennis and we love being by the river. Growing up in Canada, nature is really important to us, and living in such an amazing city like London, we wanted our weekends to feel a little bit like the English countryside. One of the things that we love so much about this area is that we're right next to a beautiful palace called Fulham Palace, and there are these gorgeous gardens, so you can almost feel like you're living in a Georgian fantasy world. These large windows, these huge sash windows open from the bottom, and you can literally walk out and see an extraordinary trees and beautiful flowers and bees that are kept. It's sort of a little oasis in West London. When we saw this house, one of the things that I loved so much about it was that where the kitchen was situated. It was right in the middle. Victorian townhouses tend to have a traditional layout. You have a room in the front, a little room in the middle that are attached by a fireplace, and then there's a large expanse in the back. And generally what people do is that they knock out the entire back and put a huge kitchen. And so therefore you're really only living in 3 spaces. But this house was somewhat different because they use this middle room that kind of gathers rubbish, or a coat here, or a dog bed there, or maybe a desk that you sometimes work at, and you're using it for much better space, your kitchen, which is in the heart of your home. Welcome to my entrance. This entrance really sets the tone for the house. I've chosen to use the color pink because pink is one of my favorite colors. It's not a color often used in an entrance, and so I think that a lot of people who come in will know exactly what to expect. Something different, unusual, playful, and fun. In London entrances, especially in Victorian townhouses, we don't have a lot of space. And often in entrances, we'd like to have a surface where we can use to put down keys and the post. I went shopping at a beautiful antique light shop, and I saw this uplighter, and I thought that the shape and the size would be perfect for this entrance, which is not that wide. But what's so special about it is that it is a light and works as a night light for those who come in a little bit later and want to have a soft light as they come in. I love to play with antiques, with original moldings, with original architecture, but I like to twist them a little bit, try and think about them in a more contemporary way. In this entrance, because I wanted to set the tone of fun, I used a traditional Victorian cornice. It's called flower and post. And what it does is that it's a beautiful sort of ornate cornice, and at every little region you put a flower and then a post. And I learned from my wonderful Nicholas Haslam, who I used to work for, this fun little trick where you take a tennis ball, you cut it in half, you fill it with plaster, and you position it in the same place that you would put a flower and a post. And what it does is that it brings a contemporary twist and a playfulness in the entrance, but keeps its Victoriana. And then with the chandelier, I wanted to bring a lot more of those particular shapes, which is why I went with a vintage 1960s light fixture. I like mixing old and new because the tension between the two brings a lot of interest. It's fun, it's playful, and I love circular shapes. Traditionally in Victorian townhouses, they tend to have a long corridor. And what I did is I added these tiny little walls, which I refer to as nib walls, because I wanted to decorate this area very differently than this area. And with this particular nib wall, because it creates a little return, it allows you to create this space and paint it one color, because on the opposite side, you have a different color. So it shortens a very long space, and then it allows you to play with color and decoration and create a zone to know that this is the entrance and this is the corridor leading to the house. Here on the right, I wanted also to use a really beautiful rug up the stairs. This gets a lot of traffic in most houses, this particular stretch. So doing something busy is practical. And what I did is that I sourced a beautiful Swedish vintage rug in France, and I cut it in half and laid it on my stairs. I love the pattern, I love the color. The busyness is just enough to hide all those dirty paws, dirty feet, and constant traffic. And it also brings a visual interest to the space as you walk in, because it tends to be quite structural, almost like a sculpture, that I didn't want to ignore. So now we're going to go to the left and into our family room. Now we're in our family room. This is the first room off the entrance. It tends to be almost a waiting room during the day. We come in, we dump our things, our shopping comes here, the coats slung over the furniture. But at night, this is where this room comes alive. It is at the front of the house, which is north facing. I decided to paint it this beautiful dark teal hue because I wanted to feel cozy at night. The fireplace comes on, and we tend to enjoy spending the evening in here. But during the day, it acts as a busy zone for waiting, grabbing, and going. Above the fireplace is a beautiful piece of work from one of my favorite artists and dear friends, Selena Baudry. These are paper piles. She creates these beautiful compositions where she paints several pieces of paper, and then she lays the colors by building these paper piles, and she's elevated it by putting it in a Perspex box. I love the fact that this particular piece complements my walls. Often with art, it's tempting to paint your walls white because you want your artwork to stand out. But sometimes it's great to consider a darker color because it makes the art more elevated. So we use the fireplace at night, and we love it in the winter because it adds a lot of warmth to the particular space. We sit here and have a nightcap after a dinner party, or the two of us, my husband and I, and sometimes with the kids, we hang out here. It's not a big space. It's a place where literally you can put your feet up on the coffee table because it's a soft piece of fabric. And we love just hanging out and chatting and just taking a deep breath after a long day. The fact that the ceiling is painted the same color as the walls allows some drama into the room. I think that it lowers the ceiling ever so slightly, which sometimes we don't want to do, but in a night cozy room, we definitely want to. And we love to close the doors to the kitchen. These are the only two doors we have in the entire house. And it just shuts the entire house down, and we just remain here in a little cozy nook. So these chest of drawers hide a lot of sins. We fill it with papers, extra pencils for my children's school run. We fill them with candles and a few other fancy plates and things that don't fit in the cupboards. But I think that they anchor the fireplace beautifully. They're vintage, they're from the 60s, and they've been recently ebonized to give it a bit of a glossy look. It matches the walls because I've given a very glossy, lacquered look to the walls. I wanted this room to shine a little bit because it is slightly dark, but we love it because during the day you don't get the same feeling as you do at night. The lamps were found at an antique shop here in London. They were original vases from India, and I've elevated them by dressing them with a black base and these quite dramatic shades. There are certain rules about shades that they shouldn't be bigger than 2.5 times the width or 2.5 times the size of a lamp base. But I sometimes like to play a little bit with the size of the shades. I think lamps are sculptural. I think they should be treated as such. They are like jewelry to the room, and they're so incredibly additive. And yellow is one of my favorite colors, this particular tone. And as I stare at them, I get to know them more and more over time. There's such beautiful detail. And this space here could be this little space for the base, to me, is very, very modern. And I'd like to find a way to use those shapes and replicate that in other ways. When my husband and I were first married, it was traditional for couples to develop a registry and get all sorts of plates and glasses and silverware, which we did, and I love them very much. But one of the things I really wanted were these beautiful green chargers from Richard Janori. And instead of hiding them away and only bringing them out on those special occasions, I've hung them on the wall as art. I just love to look at them. And I think that this circular shape is very modern and unexpected. So these chairs are 1980 Milo Bond chairs. They're from the US, but I bought them here in London from a dealer. I love the way that they swivel. It's incredibly practical to have tidy little chairs, and because of their shape, their rounded back, they're incredibly comfortable. I wanted to upholster them in a pattern because I think that the room is quite sobering in terms of its texture, and pattern allows you to bring in that extra texture. And this one in particular has a touch of yellow in that highlights the piece of work above the fireplace and the lamps. So I wanted to bring in something quite subtle, but just highlight it ever so slightly with the accent color yellow. If you look at the rug is originally from Pakistan. It uses this beautiful wool. It has a very Moroccan feel for it. But what drew me to this particular carpet, this rug, was the beautiful tones and the shades. I think some of this is completely unexpected. Color patterns that I wouldn't naturally pick, but this is exactly what I wanted. Because with all this shiny smoothness that exists everywhere, you need to create some contrast. And so I did so with this textural rug, but the textural rug in tone is similar. And so it feels very, very quiet in its approach, even though it's quite bold. This piece of furniture I had made when my husband and I were first married. Every time I see it, I think I'm going to get rid of it because maybe I want to change, maybe I want a harder surface, but it seems to stand the test of time. It's so practical. I love the way these little elements kick out. It doesn't take up space, but equally what I've done in this room is that I've used this beautiful Japanese 1980s table. It has a leaf that comes down and could be raised on occasion. Sometimes you need just a little bit more table. and the legs kick out. And sometimes what I do when I'm working from home is that I perch at the corner of this stool, and I find myself working here on a laptop from time to time on the weekends. I just love the way that this space is versatile. I like furniture that's usable in a variety of different ways. I always like to think about how can this be formal, how can this be informal, how can we add sleekness to rough texture, the idea of old and new. Sometimes contrast allows to bring interest to individual items. Putting things side by side, that is, one is elevated and the other one is not so. Putting junk next to fortune. This is where the magic happens. This is where I feel it really highlights the beauty in each of the pieces. I'm originally from Canada, and moving here in the UK, I only came to appreciate beautiful curtains when I've arrived. They have a way of really making a room feel like cotton balls. It just warms the soul to have beautiful curtains in a window. These curtains, I love the fabric. It's by Christopher Farr. It has a very relaxed feel to them. And I love the way that you contrast a shiny surface with something that's a little bit rougher. And I feel that the fabric in these curtains do exactly that. The gathering at the top is almost just a pull, and it just slopes forward. It's not fussy, and it's a bit messy, and I quite like it because it shows the thickness of the fabric. Fabric like this in a window has this unbelievable ability of absorbing sound. It adds so much to a room. You feel so warm and comfortable when a window is properly dressed. This window is facing the street side of the property, so people come in through the entrance. And I love these sunshades. They're from Tatiana Tafour. It is an abaca, which is a banana leaf, and it's incredibly sustainable. But the magic of this, apart from being beautiful, is that it allows a lot of light into the property. But as you come in off the street, magically, people on the street don't see into the property, so it provides a lot of privacy. And I think that these are the most magical blinds in a window. These frames on the wall, this art piece was the very first piece of art that I bought with my husband. We were traveling in the Middle East, and we went to the beautiful city of Damascus, which is the oldest continuously inhabited city in the world. One evening on these narrow little streets, there was a gentleman just selling art. And I just approached him and asked him questions because I thought that these shapes are rather peculiar. But the shapes are actually of the women of Syria. And if you go in closer, you can see that some of them are looking at you with one eye, two eyes. Some of them are not looking at you. But they're very contemporary and slightly naive. And I love the notion of these. You know, they're very powerful, and they bring back a lot of wonderful memories with my husband in the early stages of our marriage. And I think of them often. You know, I love the color of the yellow. I love the contrast of the black. I decided to frame them in some wood so that they didn't feel too contemporary, that they had sort of an oldie worldy feel to them. And I think that they're incredibly powerful pieces and something I will always cherish. When we walked into this house, the bones of the property were amazing. However, it had had a lot of time to collect dust. We had to redo all the plumbing and the lighting. We changed some of the configurations of the room in order to accommodate modern living, and we added a room at the back of the house instead of a traditional conservatory, which tends to get very hot in the summer and cold in the winter. My approach to interior design is really mixing old and new. I don't really look at something and say this is Victorian and therefore it must sort of appear to be Victorian, and nor do I ignore the bones of the property. I think context is really important. I think that there's a lot to celebrate about the past, but just finding a way to twist it so that you can modernize it both for your day-to-day life, but also having fun with redeveloping an old aesthetic and making it new. Now we are going to go to the kitchen, which is the heart of the home. I love this kitchen, and the reason why I love this kitchen is because it's not a kitchen. It is effectively a corridor into the back of the house. I think it's a very clever use of space. In these Victorian townhouses, the reception area, which is the front of the house, is usually divided into two spaces. A space where you sit because there's a natural ability to create a seating area, there's a fireplace, and then there's this second room. Some people have decorated it as a desk area with some bookcases for television. Others use it as a dining space. But for some reason, the second half of the front reception room, in my opinion, is not as well used for square footage, which is why I love the fact that the kitchen is here. When you think of kitchens, we often think of very, very large spaces with an island. But if a restaurant can serve 250 tables a night in a galley space, why can't we in our own homes? In London, in these beautiful Victorian houses, we are gifted with very high ceilings. When you think of kitchen design, the height at which we stop our kitchen units tend to be much lower than the ceilings. But what I love so much about this is that you can use the top part of the kitchen cabinets for plates and glasses that you only use on the occasion. When I designed this kitchen, I specifically designed it as a corridor. It just happens to be a kitchen, which is why I've put a runner in the center. I've added a beautiful light fixture, as you would do in a corridor, and I've dressed the area with some more cornicing, like the entrance. When I chose the design for the kitchen, I've specifically chosen a very simple, modern, nondescript door. The reason for that is I wanted it to feel like a hallway. I didn't really want to draw any attention to any detail. The stone is also something very, very simple because I just wanted it to blend. But the real asset of this kitchen is the runner, the light fixture, and the cornicing. I wanted to draw attention to the ceiling, and I have worked with this beautiful, wonderful specialist painter called the Finish Effect. They created this beautiful textured finish, and the color is a rhubarb which matches and highlights the rug underneath. We cook a lot in this kitchen. I know there's not a lot of counter space, but we use every square inch of it. Every cupboard is filled with utensils, food, plates, serving, pots and pans. And we cook in here galore. We bake, we make, we cook, we entertain. I have 3 gorgeous kids. There's nothing I love more than having all their friends over, and especially when they have all their friends at the same time. There's nothing that I love more than cooking to entertain. I'm not so great cooking to feed because the creativity is limited, but when there are a lot of people, it's breakfast, lunch, and dinner all day long. I wasn't always an interior designer. My career path is not as direct as some. I started off in management consulting. I have a master's in business, which I did here in the UK at the University of Edinburgh. But I've always worked on the creative side of businesses. In my management consultancy, I worked with a team who created new sources of revenue for organizations who needed to find new markets and new ways to explore. And it required a lot of creative thinking. But as soon as my work was done, I was always in the pages of magazines trying to imagine spaces. Home is very important to me. It's a place where I retreat and I, spend time with my family and friends, where I like to self-express, and really where I just want to sit and be myself. So it wasn't a surprise that I decided in the end to make a career change. I did so before children. I wanted to work after I had my children. And I thought that management consulting, as wonderful as the career was a little bit too demanding in order for me to also be present in home. So I decided to go with my passion, which is interiors. I retrained, worked with a very well-known designer here in London who gave me my start, which I'm forever grateful for. His name is Nicholas Haslam, and I started my path on interior design. Beside the kitchen, I'm going to lead you to our dining area. Welcome to our dining room. This table sees a lot of action. I love the fact that it's so unexpected. I mean, who would have thought that a rainbow table in a dining room would work? And in my house, it does. I found this piece from a fantastic dealer in London, sans pretension. He had this gorgeous table which he used as a desk. I begged him to sell it to me, and he told me it wasn't for sale. And then one day I got the call. Without even asking a member in my family if this would work for them, I bought it. When my husband got home and saw this table, he was a little shocked, but not surprised, because he's married to me after all. I said, "How much fun is this? No one I know has a rainbow table." He just sort of shrugged and said, "Whatever makes you happy." And it's been a topic of conversation ever since. My kids sometimes, when they invite their friends over, they'll say, "Have you seen our rainbow table?" I have been asked, how do you dress a rainbow table for a dinner party? My answer is, like you would dress any table for a dinner party. We have placemats, we have tablecloths, we have candlesticks, plates, forks, and knives. I feel it's a neutral now. When I dress the table, I do add color because my placemats have color. I sometimes also love using those beautiful rattan placemats. My tablecloths are often patterned or solid in color. I always have dressed my table with a lot of color. So the fact that the rainbow table is filled with color doesn't really detract, because I love the colors that are here, and all the colors that I use tend to blend together, because again, it goes back to the idea of designing a home with a large color palette in mind. So when you bring in the items with the colors that you love, they all work together. When bringing in this rainbow table, there came the question of the chairs. Now, usually with a table that's slightly more solid, you may want to go a bit more wild with the chairs, but the opposite is true here. We really wanted something quite sobering because the table was the main event. So we chose these beautiful chairs. They're from West Elm, and they came with a white upholstery, which I don't often use a lot of white fabric, but I thought that they were perfect. The height also gives a very calming effect to the pattern and the radiancy of the table. I love this chandelier. It is a beautiful piece of art. The woman who made this is a wonderful lighting sculpture designer by the name of Margit Wittig. She made this beautiful piece for me for the size of table that I have, and the pearls for each of these areas were specifically colored and designed to highlight the table and to work with the artwork in this space. There's not a lot of space here. It's specifically and only for dining, so we were able to use as much structural space in the skylight and the different colors to bring it all together. This piece of work was painted by a friend and artist, Laurie O'Brien. Every year I get together with my school girlfriends. There are about 12 of us, and we go on a weekend adventure. One year we found ourselves in Los Angeles, and we were invited to this very bougie place in Beverly Hills. There were a lot of photos taken. I then, when I got home, learned that my friend Lori was doing these painting series that she found on Instagram, the study of people spending time together. She had chosen one of the photographs of our girls' weekend in Los Angeles. And she happened to pick this picture. It's myself and two of my best friends. So it's really serendipitous because she didn't know it was me because I was slightly unrecognizable in the photo. I ask you, which one do you think I am? I'm the one in the yellow skirt. So many people, including my mother, thought I was the one in the red trousers, but I'm not. This is my best friend Charla and my other best friend Kath. This is a beautiful work that I love very much. Her name is Barbara Campbell. She does these beautiful decoupage, layered, sewn, painted and fabric pieces. They're very architectural, structural, and a beautiful study on color. This brings me so much joy. The various different shades of some of my favorite colors. When I eat dinner, I'm on the opposite side and I look at this quite often. I enjoy getting to know it better and better with every time I look at it. I love to entertain. I love to cook for friends. I'm not really great on the day-to-day, but to entertain, I love it. I like having a lot of people over. I like participating in parties. The things that I make tend to be quite easy. I serve family style, right in the center of the table. Everybody can help themselves. It's quite relaxed. We often start at the beginning of the evening, sitting down, cocktails, hors d'oeuvres, snacks, and then straight to the table. I don't make a fuss. I ask everyone to be casual. I just love the idea of just spending time together and getting to know people. It's really the greatest joy and one of the most wonderful things to get to know friends, take the time, and have conversations that you don't often get to do any longer. Who talks on the phone? Everybody's forever texting. So this is really a place where we get to know our friends. So I'm going to lead you to this zone, which I call the non-committal sofa. I love the fact that this house has tiny little sections. This little corner sofa here was designed because when my children were younger and they had their friends over, there were always these mums that would come over. And I don't know about you, but my children, the minute they heard a mum was over, they would run with their friends straight upstairs and try and extend the play date as long as possible. But mums would always just stand there hoping to get their children out and never wanted to commit to sitting down for a cup of tea. But to make them comfortable, we created this little tete-a-tete corner where you could perch in a non-committal way and just have a quick catch-up while the children figure out that the play date is over. I have this uber sexy, creative corner of leopard print right next to rainbow. Why did I know that it works? Is because in my opinion, animal print is a neutral. This happens to be one of my favorite vintage rugs in the property. It is a beautiful piece from the middle of Arabia. It's Anatolian, and I love it because it's so soft, and it's absolutely luxurious in its tone, its texture, its pattern, and its color. It brings vibrancy to a darker area of the property, and it's one of my favorite yellow tones there is. So I recently bought this chest of drawers. It was a very plain wood, oldie-worldy chest of drawers, but I loved the shape. This area of the house was a platform where we often watched the children do plays, dances, acts. And to remind me of those fun days when the children were young, dressing up in costumes, putting on a show, I wanted to create in an art form. The serpentine shape of this chest of drawers is like a stage. And I had it painted by these beautiful artists to reminisce of the days when this area was once a stage for our family. This illustration was inspired by a Japanese illustrator who loved to use traditional storytelling for her art form. And I loved it so much, and I wanted it to be playful and childlike, that I incorporated some characters from our favorite tales when we were younger. And if you look closely, there is a little Red Riding Hood and the wolf in the audience. I love ceramics. I mean, this whole property could be filled with ceramics if I had my way. This is a beautiful fruit bowl that I bought during my visit in Los Angeles a number of years ago from this fantastic person. It's called Neeland Interiors. It is from a Mexican artist. I love the playfulness, the roundness. I love the color. And I equally love the fact that they introduced this playful little terracotta, unfinished component to the bowl. I find it really beautiful and additive here, and it is a catch-all for loose wires, keys, change, some of the day-to-day things that just happen. These light fixtures are from the 1970s, and I love them to bits because they could be sculptures, but they also double up as light. It's really additive to this space in the evening because it's quite dark, but I didn't want to actually put a lamp with a shade. So it really provides some beautiful lights. What I love so much about these fixtures is the fact that they are wisteria. The spring in England is absolutely beautiful. There is a bloom every month of the year, and wisteria to me is synonymous with England. It is a beautiful purple tone, and it is really, really joyful, and I love the structure of these light fixtures. Next, I'm going to take you to our living room. So this is the main living room of the house. We spend a lot of time here, day and night. We have this huge long sofa that I've designed. It's called Envelop. I love the length of it. Two people can lie down and not even disturb one another. The height of the arms are not particularly high because I wanted them to feel like a cushion as if you were in the bed. It is really designed for lounging. We could put the entire family on the sofa, including our gorgeous dog Lola and our cat Toby. This chair here is another chair from my furniture collection. It's called Transported. It has to be the most fantastically comfortable chair in this entire house. Again, the height of it is quite low, and the curvature at the back makes you feel very, very cozy. There is a beautiful traditional shape at the top. This idea of transported is because it is a very oldie-worldy chair, which I think is fantastic in contemporary spaces. Specifically upholstered it in a beautiful fabric, a chintz by Pierre Frey, and I added a contemporary spin by using a really, really taut, sort of solid color purple with a beautiful antique border by Pink House by Rebecca Cole. Next to the chair are my tables. They're called Let the Light In. Again, they have a very modern feel and a very shiny feel. And I love the contradiction between an old and a new piece. It is incredibly convenient because you can easily put a glass down. You can move it around from place to place. You can use it as an extra chair for the occasional extra guest at the dining table. They can be used indoor and outdoor. These tiny little chairs are called Perfectly Small. These are designed specifically to be like a stool, but more comfortable. They again have this round curvature back. I love them because often in these Victorian houses or these London houses, we don't have a lot of width to our rooms, but we ask them to do a lot. So these chairs could easily be turned around so that if we have a lot of people over and we feel like watching television, everybody can have a seat and be very comfortable. But equally, they can be turned facing the crowd and we can have a fantastic conversation. I love this rug. It was the first rug I've ever designed, and I love it very much because I find it to be traditional and modern at the same time. It's called Infinite Lines. It is inspired by these beautiful tiled floors that we find in Europe. I love the idea of playing with faux finishes. The idea that a rug could mimic a tile with the grout lines is particularly exciting to me. I like the way that you can play with various different textures and patterns in different ways. This is a beautiful painting by my wonderful friend and wonderful artist, Selena Beaudry. This was probably the most serious and the biggest piece of work my husband and I have ever purchased. I love it very much. It actually came at the same time as I was pulling this room together, just by accident. I just love the way that the colors dance, and it reminds me of a burst of spring, which again in this country is one of the most beautiful seasons. It looks beautiful during the day, it looks beautiful at night. I love staring with it. It gives me great inspiration for color. I applied a lot of color to my work, and I chose a palette that I think looks really beautiful in this northern light, but that has a lot of fun and a spring-like feel. There's very, very good energy, and I chose a palette and then I applied it everywhere, haphazardly, in every room, a variety of different colors, and together as a whole, it works. We are now moving to the garden room. Welcome to my garden room. This room is often used during the day. In fact, we spend most of the weekend mornings here just lounging around and reading the papers. We're quite old-fashioned that way. There's nothing like pulling out the newspaper and reading it end to end. You learn so much. This room is a labor of love. It is a very artful room. The idea of being crafty and artistic is important to me, but I also love the idea of naive shapes and a little bit of a DIY angle to it because I think it brings a lot of charm. Some people go for walks, arrange flowers, or read to relax. Well, I really love to cut paper. I love decoupage. It is a wonderful art form, and it's something I enjoy doing very much. These shapes are really an extension of that. During COVID, in lockdown, I was doing quite a bit of decoupage and papier-mâché and a few other things to keep myself creative and busy and enjoy the time with my children. I actually cut all of these shapes myself. I was playing around and I just found paper and I started to create bigger, larger scale shapes. And with masking tape, I went around and just stuck things on the wall just for fun. It just dawned on me that actually anything that is sculptural and large and naive and has scale would make unbelievable wallpaper. But I didn't find any in the market, so I just created it myself. So this mirror was created for a pop-up that I did a number of years ago. It was actually used on the ceiling. It's really just 2x4 that's been painted. The idea of the shapes is really to mimic what you would find in traditional molding. But I took a Bloomsbury approach to it, and I made it slightly looser, more naive, more playful. And I love it so much because this is really not valuable at all. Through the artwork, it has become more valuable. I love it very much. It reminds me of that very creative time during that pop-up. And it's so wonderful to see it in this room. It works so beautifully with the wallpaper, the scale, and its composition. Below this beautiful 1970s vintage console table is the ottoman that works with the adjacent chair. I love this large-scale tapestry fabric. This is really a nod to the idea of this being a garden room. Tapestry, greenery is just incredibly soothing. It is beautiful and wonderful, and green is my favorite color. This is the other side of the garden room. This is where all the reading happens in the morning on the weekends. My family lounges here. We read the newspaper, magazines, we have a coffee, we catch up on the week. And we sometimes plan for the weekend because there's a lot of logistics with many children and our own activities and friends. We plan in advance and we love it. We just enjoy spending here. It's a very, very cozy room. It's a very, very soft, cushiony sofa, and the light is extraordinary. These Inuit pieces were given to me when we were just married. I love Inuit art. Being Canadian, Inuit art is incredibly important and a wonderful art piece for the heritage of Canada. What I love so much about Inuit art is that it's very naive in its approach. The colors are absolutely extraordinary. There's a northern light to them. They're very, very soft in nature. But because of the content and the shapes, I find them very contemporary, even though they've been doing this for a long time. I love these Inuit pieces. They remind me of my home in Canada. This coffee table is very special to me. I commissioned a wonderful maker and artist by the name of James Shaw. He uses recycled plastics to create his furniture pieces. It's a process he's developed, and he squeezes it out as if it's like a big ice cream scoop. All the shapes fold on top of each other. And for a surface, what he did is that he flattened it out, and the texture is extraordinary and beautiful. But it's also incredibly hard wearing. It's great for coffee cups, warm tea. The sunlight doesn't disturb it. I think it's perfect, and it doesn't take up too much room. We can just slide it to the right and left, however we need it. This is the second rug that I've created. I love it very much. It's called Reimagined. It's because it was reimagined from an existing vintage piece. It is a 1930s Swedish pattern. It's so, so beautiful. It feels very at home here. Again, the shapes are naive, but the patterns feel very contemporary to me. The colors used are soft, that mimic the Inuit art. I love the way that it captures this space and holds it together. I love the needlepoint. It is perfect for a garden room. It just feels English, but foreign at the same time. So these caned chairs are gorgeous. They're called Malawi caned chairs. I love them because rattan and caning, I feel, are absolutely beautiful in a garden room, in a living room, in any room. It brings a touch of loose, casual glamour to any space. I had it painted in this fantastic teal color. It's the same color I used in the front family room. I love pulling in colors from different rooms in different spaces. It's the way in which you hold an entire house together in terms of a color palette. I added the cushioning. I love the way that it shapes the chair and it adds that extra level of comfort. I take comfort very, very seriously. I want people to come over and stay for a while. I love these curtains. They were designed by this wonderful fabric designer by the name of Ottiline de Vries. She made these patterns and colors for me as a custom favor. What I love so much about them from her design is that they were reminiscent of the shapes I've put on the walls, so they were a sure fit. We matched the colors, she created the scale for the space, and now we're using them as curtains. I think they're wonderful, playful, traditional, modern, and appropriate for a warm but bright garden room. When I walk into a space, I immediately get a sense of what colors would work. There's a palette that develops in my mind, and I really take a very holistic approach. So I look at the color, I look at contrasting colors and harmonious colors, and I develop quite a large palette of colors. And then what I do is that I choose different colors to different rooms according to the mood you want to feel. Color is emotion, and different colors evoke different moods. So I do think about that. But I apply this large palette throughout the property, throughout any property. I don't just say one's a pink room, one's a red room, one's a blue room, and hope that they all stick together. It's a way for you to be able to confidently know that if you choose to take a monochromatic view on one room, it will work with the bottom room that you've taken a more colorful approach. It's a way for the whole house to fit together and that all the colors intermingle. And it allows you to add contrasting colors or harmonious colors in different rooms, and it will work together. And now I'd like to take you upstairs to our bedroom. Before we go into the bedroom, I'd love to stop and talk about these amazing, neat people. They are created by this wonderful artist in France by the name of Nathalie Lété. She did this wonderful installation of these dolls where she created as if it was a butcher, and she hung all these beautiful dolls because they are actually pieces of meat. And I love it, especially Mr. T-Bone Steak. You can kind of see his name is written here because my nephew, who I love dearly, I have several nephews and nieces, his nickname is T-Bone. So I initially thought, oh, maybe I'll buy this as a gift for my sister. But I really didn't want to give it away. I love it so much. I kept it for myself. And I hung them just outside the door because, again, it's incredibly playful. There's a bit of irony and tongue-in-cheek in it. And I love the fact that it's a Mr. and Mrs. because it's leading to the room of myself and my husband. Welcome to my bedroom. I love this room. It is really the only place in the house that is truly ours. What I wanted to do in this room is envelop myself in just this artful, wonderful, calming space. I love the color blue for the idea that it does feel calming. And when I found this beautiful wallpaper, which is by Schumacher, it's by a wonderful friend and gallerist called Peg Norris. They work with artists to create beautiful artistic lead wallpapers. I couldn't resist. It looks like my room has been watercolored. It's absolutely stunning. You could see some touches of the watermarks in the scale of the paper. And when you lie down in bed and you're enveloped by this large scale, beautiful artwork, you really feel so comfortable, so relaxed, and really on your own. The bed tends to be the focal point in any bedroom. So it would be a missed opportunity, in my opinion, just to dress it all in white. I like to pull colors from the walls into the bed and play with the textures. Because the wallpaper is large in scale, it allowed me to choose tighter, more interesting, more textural fabrics for the bed. I've chosen to dress this bed this way to play on these textures. You have a bit of iCat pattern for the top cushions, a woolly, cozy central cushion, and I use this beautiful vintage scarf to cover these accent cushions to pull the tones and the details from the colors of the wallpaper. Lastly, for the bed, I have this beautiful antique cloth that I found in Morocco, and I use it to cover because the touch of detail is exquisite. The headboard was custom made. I really wanted to have something very, very playful. I love the various different corners, but ultimately it's modeled after and inspired by the beautiful garden chairs we find here in England. This is a shape that you see time to time in these beautiful historical homes in the garden. And I just love it so much. It has a contemporary bent to a traditional idea. These beautiful lamps were a gift from my mother. She asked me what I wanted for a housewarming gift, and it really was the easiest decision. These lamps are beautiful and are made by my former boss, my former employer, Nicky Haslam. He found these magnificent Picasso-esque vases, which he created a mold for, and from which these lamps were crafted. The rug here is vintage. I bought it here in London from a wonderful dealer called Emily's House, and it is Moroccan. I love this soft, peachy tone. It is pinky in nature, but adds, again, this idea of serenity and comfort. And it's rather appropriate in a bedroom to look at these textural, woolly patterns because, you know, the idea is to walk around bare feet, super casual, and really feel like you're treating yourself. This artwork is by an amazing artist by the name of Daniel Hernandez. I love it so much. They're portraits of my children. I always knew I'd love to have portraits of my children, but wondered what it would be. Some of the traditional portraits, albeit beautiful, it was not something that I really wanted. I wanted something more artistic. And when I learned about this artist, he does stitched portraitures. He came over one day, took a photo of my children, and then stitched them to these fabrics. The detailing is extraordinary. He even created these beautiful shapes, the smocking of my daughter's dress, the stitching of my son's checkered shirt. He even incorporated the stitching detail of the fabric used on the chairs that they were sitting. They are a treasure to me. I love lying in bed and looking at these pieces of work. After all, they are my greatest joy and my greatest pride ever to have these three beautiful children that give me so much happiness and love. Now let me take you to our bathroom. In our master bathroom, I wanted to continue the theme of serenity. I used the various different tones from the wallpaper to pull out the blues that I love. There's a very soft blue paint on the wall and a deeper blue paint on the ceiling. I love painting ceilings. I love changing the colors of ceilings. They're incredibly additive and they really bring an element of surprise. I am in love with tiles. If I could, this whole room would be tiled. But what I decided to do is focus on the floor. These tiles are made by Balanium and they are painted tiles. They're very artistic. You can even see the brush strokes in them. I love this texture and pattern. It reminded me of my time in Japan. I really was inspired by the Katsura Palace. The use of the check in Japanese culture is extraordinary and really well suited in a tile form. I wanted to replicate those patterns and bring that artistic feel even in the bathroom. These blueprints was the first interior gift I ever received. It was a gift from my mother. In the early 90s, I was a Martha Stewart diehard fan. She had such beautiful ideas. She offered these blueprints of ferns in her magazine. It was sort of a buy a 6 of these and so on. And my mother thought that that would be a really great gift for me. So I received them one Christmas and she had them framed. They have followed me ever since. They have been in my main room, in a side room, and now they reside in the bathroom. I love the way that they draw you into this space. The memory is very, very dear to me because they were given by my mother, but equally, it was also the first real inspiring person in interiors to me, Martha Stewart. She is the best, a badass. I love her. I love bathrooms that feel more like a room than a traditional bathroom. I think it's very warming and it's residential. One of the things that I like to do with vanities is sort of treat them like they're furniture. There's nothing better than finding a piece and then refurbishing it for a bathroom. In our case, because I wanted to hide some medicine cabinets and increase the mirror space for us, I created the doors as if they were facades of antique chest of drawers that open up to this cavernous space to hide towels and extra soap, the things that we all need. And equally, one of the fun things to do in a residential setting to make it feel more residential is to actually hang mirror on mirror. These were found pieces at a flea market. They were matching, and I just hung them on the mirror just to frame the area and give a little bit more of a decorative interest. The thing that I love the most about my home is the fact that it is open concept, but it has zones. We can see one another in every single part of the house, but at the same time, there are tiny little corners where you can go about and do the activity that you need to be doing, such as reading or watching television or hanging out or cooking or eating. It uses this space very, very well. As you know, large cities have a limited amount of space, so every square foot is very, very important. We want to live openly and we want to live together, but we also want certain areas to be able to block out other things. And equally at the same time, within these zones, because there are tiny little walls, it allowed me to decorate each space in its own unique way, and it all fits together from the front of the house all the way to the back of the house. Now I'd like to take you upstairs in the Hall of Memory and onto my study. I think that in a family home, it's really wonderful to hang pictures of your children, your family members, and friends. One trick I highly recommend is actually finding ways to make the composition look uniform and decorative. One way to do this is to use very simple frames and to actually highlight something on the border. In this case, I used wallpaper, the same wallpaper that exists in the adjacent corridor. It allows you to actually hold the entire composition together because it is one of the unifying themes. Now I'd like to invite you into my study. Welcome to my study. This is really effectively my home office that doubles up as a guest bedroom. I love hiding away up here in the house. It is a very cozy room. I've decided to paint it in one of my favorite colors that I created with Koenig colors. The color is called Mr. Bateman. It's this gorgeous pinky purple, and I find it incredibly soothing. I get in here and I feel lost in my world of creativity. I thought about this room quite a lot. I wanted it highly decorative, but also quite modular. It was a bit of an experiment. A lot of people in London rent, but yet they want to decorate. And I feel that they should be allowed to do whatever they want with their walls. One way to do that is to create panels. You can effectively choose to panel your room with wallpapered panels and then create a decorative effect by hanging them like they're pieces of art. Here is an example of how that could be done. This artwork here is part of a screen. The screen is divided into 3 sections, and I hung them on the wall rather than leaving them into the room because I love the idea of the shape. It's just so beautiful, the way that it's been stitched, the way that it's been painted, and equally cut out. There's something very raw about this. The color is gorgeous. It has a chinoiserie pattern, and it is a piece of artwork, and it should be hung on the wall, and it should be celebrated, even though it probably was used at one time to hide or to dress or to create a division within a room. Here is an example of an artful rendition of my perfectly small chair. It was a collaboration that I did with a vintage fashion designer, Clemmy Myers, and an artist, Selena Beaudry. Together, we created a story called Mrs. and Mr. Bateman. This chair is an example of how this all came together. It's the story of the long-lost nephew who had a horrible relationship with his mother. And he tore up all of her clothes and artwork. And when he went for therapy, the therapist said, you need to figure out how to find forgiveness. And what he did is he took all these pieces that he tore up and he stitched it together and created a chair. And now he sits on his horrible mother with disdain. I often spend days or evenings in here just puttering about, looking at photos, going through some fabrics, because I keep all of my fabric samples here. But the sofa bed is absolutely fantastic because I take the desk, I turn it against my shelving for fabrics, and I pull out the bed, and it becomes an extra room for guests. We have a ton of sleepovers here. My children have a lot of friends. I do love a full house. I want it to be full, so we have to make these rooms work for us. So this is a fantastic sofa bed, which I reupholstered in a beautiful pierre-feuille fabric in this fantastic purple, because purple is a fabulous color. This little workroom for me is incredibly inspiring. I just love sitting in here. It's so cozy. I get lost in my fabrics and my ideas. It allows me to close the door and spread out. I have tidied this room for you today. However, on a work day, there are papers and pieces of fabric everywhere. Right over here, I have a beautiful little cork board that I actually pin ideas. I stare at it during the day and allow my ideas to form. I pull things off and put things on. I've add fabrics, I add photos. It allows me to really, really spend time with my projects and think of them. Every desk needs a desk lamp, but one of the things I love so much is to think about things outside of the box. When I found this desk lamp online from an antique dealer in north of England, I knew right away it was mine. The tulip shape is just so perfect for working. It has the actual structure you would need for task lighting, but it's playful and I love looking at it. It makes me smile. For me, the home is definitely an expression of the personalities who live there. I think it's very important for everybody to just see themselves in their space so that it's congruent. When you buy things, you have to buy things that you love because you're going to be living with them and they give back to you over time. As you share your time with these objects, you love them the more you look at them. You get to know them. And therefore, to express yourself in that way and to have the courage to buy the pieces that you love, it will bring back so much joy to your life. And therefore, a home to me is a reflection of the people who live there.
Hi, Homeworthy. I'm Butter Wakefield. Welcome to my home in West London. Please come in. Hi, I'm Homeworthy. My name is Butter Wakefield and you're in my home in London, West London, Shepherd's Bush to be precise. I've lived here for almost 32 years. We bought the house when I was pregnant with our second son, Jack. And so I've lived here a long time. We bought it together when I was married to my English husband. He's now not my husband, but I'm still here, which is a blessing because I love it here. And all 4 children have been raised here. And it's rather a special spot for me, and the garden particularly. So this is my front hall. It's got this wonderful Cole & Son big leafy palm wallpaper. And below the dado rail, it's got this sage and onion little green paint, which I'm absolutely wedded to. I think it's really fun. And then this big black and white linoleum floor. And I think the floor is the thing that started first and has remained. We've had various changes throughout the house, but the black and white has always been sort of the thread through the house. And it's kind of fun because it's a big format and it's easy to maintain, and it's hard wearing and bomb-proof, basically. And then up the stairs, I sort of carried on this. When my husband moved out, I sort of changed the stair carpet and found this really fun black and white stripy stair runner, and I painted the handrail shiny black. So, I just kind of made it really as black and white as I could. So this is kind of the hall. And here, I've got some black and white floral botanicals, which I absolutely love. They're all different. They're antique, and it's really fun to view them as you go up and down the steps. So I rather love them. In this little space right here as you come in the hall, there are several clever things, I think. One, the floor mat the size of floor mat is extra oversized. So, you know, lots and lots of filthy feet can fit onto here, which is great. And then a radiator cover, I think, is always so useful. And I've got antique bowls and to put my, you know, lots of stuff in. Tape measure, always tape measure. And then here I've got this lovely big antique mirror which kind of bounces the light around, and a double set, you know, 2 hanging lanterns, which I think is fun because typically you would have just had the one, wouldn't you? But a friend of mine, a designer friend of mine, Bertie Fortescue, said, no, let's have 2 here. It'll just elevate everything. I do notice there's a missing light bulb, which is really annoying. And then I found these incredible, they're wooden deer heads and antlers. I think the antlers are real, but the deer heads are wooden. I think they're Austrian. Really don't know, probably 18th century maybe. And then I've got these wonderful yellow gilded plates by an artist called Freya. And when I light the candle in the evening, when I've got people for supper, it does reflect the light so beautifully. It's really, really fun. And she's so clever. And these are sort of running deers too, so the sort of deer theme kind of, you know, continues. And then across here on the other side of the wall, which is nice, you can see in the reflection, are some rather colorful modern art. And this one, this big expansive yellow, I was very reluctant to kind of get on board with the color yellow. I really love this sort of bold, dark, sort of umbery yellow with the sort of flash of orange running through it. And then this is picked up by another artist called Sheeran. And they're both alive, and I love collecting artwork that from artists who are, you know, alive and well. So this is fun. So it kind of breaks up the green, adds color as you come in, and yeah, creates a sort of sense of fun, which I think is rather important. So this is my sort of hallway and upstairs, and so from here we'll go into the drawing room. So here we are in my drawing room, which is a lovely, big, gracious double drawing room. The house was built in the 1870s, and it's sort of late Victorian, early Edwardian. And what's really nice about this house particularly, is it has an east-west aspect. So my front garden at the front of the house is east-facing, and my rear garden at the back of the house is west-facing. So morning light and evening light. So I feel like I'm really blessed with the best aspect, particularly as I'm a garden designer, and aspect is really everything when you're designing a garden, and it's the first place you start. So maybe I should talk a little bit about myself. I'm an American, and I've lived here for something like 37 years or something. So most of my adult life I've lived in this country and not in America. But I grew up in a very small farm in Maryland, outside of Baltimore. And it was a very rural upbringing. We played in the barn and in the streams, and hardly ever saw, you know, I hardly ever saw my parents in the summertime. It was blissful, bucolic joy. And we had ponies, and so we did sort of pony camp and a little bit of fox hunting, and so it was a marvelous upbringing. And then from there I went to university and ended up in New York, where I worked at Christie's. And when I was in New York working for Christie's, which I absolutely adored, it kind of saved me, Christie's, because it was, you know, as a sort of farm girl, it was so full of eccentric, wonderful people. And of course, selling the most interesting, the best of the best, you know, and it was not just pictures, but it was paintings and silver and rugs and jewels and furniture. So I got such an incredible exposure to very beautiful things, which has stayed with me forever, ever since. And then when I was living in New York, I met my English husband, and that is why I'm here still today. So that's a little bit of background. But it's been fun. When I arrived in this country, I started working at Colfax and Fowler, which really was a really lovely follow-on from Christie's, actually, because that was sort of the the beautiful things. And then Colfax, of course, is interior design. So it helped me understand how to put a room together and how to choose colors that were complementary and contrasting, and taught me about scale and texture and color and form and composition, which of course has helped me hugely in my garden design business now. But there's more about the room itself. So the black and white theme continues. I've got, this is a dyed cow rug. It's not a real zebra. But the black and white ticking is Ian Mankin. And then the walls are a wonderful color. It's a Farron Ball color called Lamproom Grey, which kind of sets everything off so beautifully. And again, of course, more green and white. This is a fabric by Raoul for George Spencer, which I really love because it's so sort of bold and geometric. And the blinds are nice. I really love the sort of filtered light, and I like having them when it's really sunny, quite low. And it makes it all nice and cool in here in the summertime, so that's good. And then there's a lot of color. I love color. I've got these bold patterns here, for instance, and on the orange chair are all manual canvas, and those two chairs there are manual canvas. And what I love best about this room is having all this kind of bold and bright colors. I know it doesn't suit everyone, but for me, it's as I said earlier, I really love color, and this gallery wall is an example of, you know, how I just kind of, all the colors I feel like are happy together and go. This is a very beautiful picture by a man called Erdely Knowles, who was sort of in the Bloomsbury set, and my ex-husband gave this to me when our first child, Zoe, was born. So it's a very special picture, and then I've just kind of added to it over the years. Every time I kind of finish a big project and I feel it's gone well, instead of saving my money, I might spend it on a bit of art, which I feel is lovely because it gives me pleasure every day, and I can see it all the time. And it kind of reminds me that the hard work is worth, you know, it's worth all the blood and the sweat. Sometimes the tears. So this is the sort of first half of the drawing room, and it's got a gas fire, which is great. So I sit here in the mornings and do my tapestry. I've got a really ugly light, but it is really good. And this is what I'm working on now, which is a lovely auricula pattern by Kay Fassett, who's fantastic. And these are both Kay Fassett vegetables, a cabbage and a cauliflower. And the thing about tapestry, I feel as a business owner quite a busy, stressful life, and having a minute to do tapestry kind of on Saturday morning really helps kind of settle me and calm my nerves and reset me for a happy kind of relaxed weekend. And these two cushions here are also, these are both Kay Fassett too. I seem to understand his colors. I do change some of them out, though. I have to say I make them even brighter than he does. So a bit crazy. Wafer has just joined us in the drawing room, and Wafer kind of really does understand that he's not really supposed to be up there, don't you? But because it's a film day, maybe it's okay. He's a border terrier. He's about 11 or 12 years old, and it's him and I. We live together here. So he is my bud, and I'd be lost without him. So, I mean, but really naughty. He's up there, just saying. So flowers, hugely important for me to be able to pick flowers. I grow orange colored tulips in the spring, specifically to bring in here and cut. And I love the color orange, in case that was unclear. And so orange and yellow and pink are three of my favorite flower combinations. So I like to put tulips together in those sort of rich tones to bring inside. But more about the room. I mean, this end of the room is kind of slightly more summery, and this end of the room is a little bit more wintry. Here's a great picture that a friend of mine, Kirsty Withers, painted, which I absolutely love. I mean, it's full of incredible purples and yellows, and she's got wonderful use of a palette knife, and her sense of creating a very beautiful landscape seems to be something that she does beautifully well. So that's one of hers, and as is this one above the fireplace. So this end of the drawing room is slightly more, it's more wintry somehow, we feel. It's got a real fireplace, which is lovely. And something that I love about this room are the shelves. I love shelves. I think shelves are a wonderful opportunity to put stuff on. I love collecting bits of china. As you can see, this is a rather comprehensive collection of pink luster. And I love a Staffordshire dog. So I've got lots of Staffordshire Spaniels about the place. There's another one hiding behind the orange lampshade. And my choice of colour and my love of colour has slowly developed over the years. And my love particularly for orange is probably a recent phenomenon, probably in the last 5 years. So I started my foray into my fascination with orange by painting the inside of the bookshelves orange first. And then slowly I've just added more orange as my sort of confidence and love for it has grown. So this is a very sweet slipper chair that I got from my friend Joanna Plant. And I covered this in this wonderful orange mohair. It's kind of a burnt orangey color. And then I put a rather lovely contrast fan edge on it in a sort of red color, which I think is really fun. And it's just a great little chair that you can pull up. I can pull it up over there if we need extra seating, or here. And then I've got these two puffs, one here and one there. And they are great for additional seating, you know, really lovely to sit by the fire. And I love them. They're terrific bits of extra furniture. Lots of the chairs in this room are old. That's an old chair, and this is an old chair. And the two in the other side of the drawing room are old. And I love mixing old and new. I think it makes a much more pleasing and interesting composition, furniture-wise. And you want to set out, you know, your seating areas so two people can sit comfortably and have a conversation, but so can 6 and then 8 if you need to. And I think it's really nice to have tables nearby. And I love an ottoman, and it's again another surface to put things on. So this has got a lovely old antique tray, which is an iron wood tray. I think it's called ironwood, and a wedgwood plates. And I love having stacks of books and candles, and you know, I just like composing tabletop, you know, ottomans, for instance. And then just flowers, more flowers everywhere. So you can't really have too many. Again, I love to collect things. This is sea glass that I've collected over the years. I've got 2 big pots of them. We spend our summers on Cape Cod, and you know, I just love to, you know, comb the beaches and find sea glass. And there's another glass of it there. And it's always a good walk on the beach when I, you know, come home with a little handful of sea glass. The other thing that I want to talk about quickly before we leave the drawing room is the 2 lamps in the window. They're rather special. I found them in an antique shop on Great Island on Cape Cod, and they were there for a couple of years. And I thought, if they're there, if I go back and they're there, then I'm going to have to bring them home. So I packaged them up and shipped them home. Honestly, it costs more to ship them home than the lamps themselves. But I think this sort of mauvey orange glass is so particularly beautiful. And in the morning, when the sun kind of shines through it, it casts this amazing sort of mauvey orange glow across the drawing room, which is rather special. And then my friend Rossi Derug made these lampshades to go with. So yeah, one little added extra, which I think makes this sort of table kind of come to life. If I have to describe my style, my sense of style, I guess it's pretty clear that I would call myself a maximalist. I'm also particularly a color. I think I'm quite traditional though too. I know that there are a lot of colors in here, but it's quite a traditional set up here. You know, there's not a modern element to be found. So I'd say quite trad and full of color. And I love to layer things. I think that's what makes a room really interesting. And collecting things on your travels for your home, I think, is one of the nicest things you can do to bring the home to life. And I think it's the found things that you stumble upon in antique shops on your travels are the things that really are the most special. And so I do try to keep a beady eye out for all sorts of fun things. Like I have this little collection of Staffordshire cow creamers, which I'm absolutely mad about. And I've got, you know, a little herd of them. And I just think they're so sweet and charming, and it helps that they're also orange and cream. So they kind of amuse me. And then I love to put flowers in old jugs and pitchers and containers, because I think the container is as important as the flower arrangement. So this is a lovely old chintz-ware jug, and this is a really pretty old pink luster jug, which is very unusual. This size and this pattern is so unusual. So I was delighted when I stumbled upon that. So it just makes it, I think it makes the home interesting. And then this container here is a new potter who I discovered when I stayed in a lovely PR moment in Tyne, England, which is in the countryside in Oxfordshire, and he has incredible color. I think he uses color so beautifully. So there are 3 there on that table. There's 1 here full of these flowers, and then there's a little collection of them on my ottoman in here. And I think it's really nice to combine old and new. And I think I don't ever have any problems doing that. I think some people are like, oh gosh, it's a bit of a, and I just mix it all up. I think it's really fun, and it makes for a really interesting home. So I love that. So on we go to the kitchen. So on my way to the kitchen, there is a little downstairs loo, which I think might be something to take a little look at. So again, it's a tiny, tiny room, and I put a nice kind of Cottages style wallpaper in there. And then I just covered the walls as much as I could with pictures. So when you're in here, you've got something nice to look at. And again, an opportunity to have some shelves, and a cupboard which sort of hides the loo cleaner and the loo paper, and then shelves above, which I enjoy kind of fiddling about with. Again, more dogs. You can see my little collection here. And birds. I'm also really keen on birds. I do love birds. I love garden birds. I like feeding the birds. And my pa loved to feed the birds. And so I'm very keen. And then I have a little collection of nests that I've found in my travels that have fallen on the ground always. I would never pluck one out of a tree. But I have some lovely old birds' nests up there too. So again, it's a real mixture of style and color and pattern and form. I've got some birds here, but then I've got some sort of ferns and a giraffe, and then a lovely, sweet little collection of dogs here, and some, so I think, whatever you want to put up. So it's kind of fun. Here I am in the kitchen, and please excuse the ugly dog crate and the pile of hideous things on top, but this is a home and it's part of it, and I thought I could move that, but I'm not going to because I can't be bothered. I don't have enough time. I was much more focused on the flowers for the table and the table itself. So this is kind of the beating heart of the home. It's probably the beating heart of every home, I imagine, but this one particularly, the black and white floor runs through from here and into the conservatory, which is over here. But the kitchen's always been such a happy place for us as a family, the 4 children. The black countertop also sort of mimics the black everywhere else. And when we were when we bought the house, we didn't have enough money to put hanging cupboards above the countertop. So I just had the idea that I would just set two and cover the walls with black frame prints. So the black has been a theme that's kind of runs throughout. And I think I'm so pleased that it worked out that way, because I think it's so much nicer not to have the walls kind of overwhelmed with hanging cupboards. And it was very much the fashion then. Now it's all sort of all open shelves, isn't it? But it was very much the fashion to have big, clumpy, heavy cupboards above, but we couldn't afford them, so happy result. So lots of botanical prints on the walls in black frames. Some of them are literally just postcards. I think this one's a postcard. So anything that I could find that was floral in the early days, I would slap a black frame on and hang. And there's some butterflies and other bits and pieces. This is a particularly special bit of artwork by a friend of mine called Sarah Bowen, and it was a commission that I asked her to do for me. I said I wanted a bucolic scene of the countryside with some cows to remind me of home, and there it is. She's done it beautifully. So I get great joy from looking at that every day. And she chose the color of the flowers for me and put the figs in, all the sort of mauvey purples that I love. And then another shelf, more shelves. I've got here's my collection of Staffordshire dogs, which I am very partial to. I think they just look so sweet and cheery, and they just amuse me and kind of keep me company, if that's possible. So here we are, and people always say, oh my God, how do you clean all this with the grease? And you just take it all down and soap it down and put it back up again. So it's never bothered me, any of that. You just give it a clean. And I'm not fastidious about it all being immaculately clean anyway. I think, again, like the crate, it's all about living in a home and having it work for you as the homeowner. And this works for me. So I every now and then I think, oh, it's time to clean. So this is the cooker, and then of course my kitchen sink, which is a lovely big kitchen sink, looks onto the garden, which is a very happy place to spend time. As the mother of four, there's been a lot of time spent at the kitchen sink. So it's nice to have a really beautiful view. And as a garden designer, I often think about the views looking from the inside out into the garden, and how important it is to create interesting viewports and sight lines and focus and focal points. So at the end of this run down my kitchen door, which this is kind of a fun door too, just by the way, it's a sort of barn door, which is really helpful when you have a dog. So it can be open, but he can, he stays in. But this is kind of the longest axis, and if you're standing at the front door, you can see all the way through and down the hall, across the garden and to the back of the wildflower meadow. So that's rather magical, I think. That's something that I care a lot about, is the view from the inside out, and try hard to create those magical moments for my clients as well. Kitchen table, just quite average, I'd say, but rather nice. It looks good laid and unlaid, and I've got this wonderful Penny Morrison stripe fabric on the benches. I had chairs here originally, but I found the backs of them got in the way and kind of created too much confusion on the sort of cleaner lines. So this is better for me. I think some people don't like sitting on benches, but I don't mind. I'd much prefer to sit on a bench and not have a great big chair back in the way. So yeah, this is kind of where a lot of happy memories have been made, which is great. And then at the end, sort of asymmetrically, we've got these two rather dark painted units. The tall units in the kitchen are this sort of lovely red, kind of mahogany red color. This is a color called Arras by Little Green company. And then I wanted to kind of create some amusement by putting pink with it, red and pink. I think it's kind of a fun combination. And weirdly, this plant is the same. So he can, she's welcome to the party. And then below the black countertop here, the inside of the wine rack is pink as well. Again, just to kind of create a little lightness and amusement and a combination. A sweet little picture up there, which I absolutely adore. It's just that red and pink again combination, which I think is so pretty, with a bit of green, my favorite thing in the whole world. So this is the kitchen, and it's been this way for a very long time. So these are the new additions, but it's been white and green and black for a long time. So bravely, I just quite recently painted these two things. So I'm very pleased. I think it adds a sort of richness to an otherwise rather more sort of clean look. The children were not at all convinced. They're like, "Mummy, don't do that." I'm like, "No, I've got to change things sometimes." So I imagine you might wonder how on earth I got the name Butter. And it's was given to me a long time ago by my father when I was a baby. I was round like a butterball. Fortunately, the ball bit dropped, but I've been Butter ever since. And it's kind of a funny one. There was an awkward age when I was about 12, and I was like, please, no one call me Butter anymore. And you know, when you're so self-conscious, when you're just sort of entering your teens, and I was riding with a really lovely magical trainer, and he said to me, when I said, "Would you mind calling me Elisa?" And he was kind of the love of my life. I had the biggest crush on him. And he said, "I'm not going to ever call you Elisa. I will only ever call you Butter. So you're just going to have to get used to that." So I just thought, well, okay, if it's good enough for him, then I'll hang on to it. And it's just followed me. There were moments when I got to Christie's in New York, and I thought, maybe now I should be Elisa. But all it took was someone to call me Butter, and they're like, "Wait, what? That's your name? We want to call you Butter." So I have never really been able to shed it. But in many ways, there are not many of me. So I feel like it's kind of served me well in a way. I never have to say my surname, which is Wakefield. So I only ever have to say Butter. And Butter is actually even my business, Butter Wakefield Garden Design is my business name too. So that's how I got that name. As you can see, there's more of this lovely pottery by a man whose name I can't remember, but I will remember eventually. And lovely flowers. The table's not laid yet, but I think that might be something that we can do together once we've been in the garden. So we'll do that after that. So from the kitchen into the garden, two steps down, which is lovely, not too much. Again, my door, which I'm going to talk to you briefly about because I think it's rather special. It's a stable door, which I spoke about earlier. But what we did, which makes it rather lovely, is it was a bit of a small opening. You can see the door itself is quite small, and it felt a bit diminutive. So we put a lovely big surround around it, a timber surround with lovely big generous moldings and sort of fluting. And then we put a bit of a lead flashing on the cap and painted it this lovely color. This is Farrow and Ball downpipe. So the whole exterior, the woodwork on the windows and doors and conservatory are all painted dark, which I really love. I don't really like white windows. I don't know why, but I prefer them dark, and I think this is a really nice color. So I have a small circular table here, which seats 6 comfortably. They're set for 4 right now. And here are some of my pelargoniums, which I've grown from cuttings. They love it outside, so as soon as it warms up and the fear of frost is over, they come outside. And then this is just an old urn of succulents, which I find quite amusing because they have these fabulous flowers, which I think are kind of crazy. And terracotta pots the whole way around on the terrace. I find that if you choose 1 or 2 different materials, both inside and out, but mostly outside, I think you have to be a little bit more controlled, actually. So I've got terracotta, metal. This is old reclaimed York stone on the ground, which I think is very beautiful and pleasing and kind of timeless. And then the only kind of crazy colored thing are these wonderful old antique buckets, which I found. And they had all my tulips in them in the spring. And I've just sown in situ some zinnias here. So they're well underway. I did that last week, maybe, in between crazy moments. I just thought, I've just got to sow my zinnias. So here they are. I hope they do well. And then I've just got this rather comfortable, sort of overstuffed, it's lovely here, 2 benches, 2 3-seater benches and a coffee table. And tables, again, this is my love for a surface. I love to have full of pots because I think when you look out from the inside and you see a table full of interesting pots that change seasonally, you really create something special to view. And when it's raining and filthy, which it is often in this country, a table full of pretty pots is something quite special. And then the upholstery, again, I love mixing different. This is lovely Rapture and Right, which I had a little bit left over of. And then this is just a very pretty cotton and a ticking. So, and then I combine everything together to kind of create, that's a different stripe from that stripe. And then this sort of ties the two together. And then the big cushions in this rather pretty floral, green and white floral. So more green. So off we go into the garden. I'll just talk you through how it's laid out first, and then we can go have a little peek around. So I've got 2 big borders, quite traditional, mixed borders, we call them in this country, either side. They're about 1.6 meters wide, which is about 5 foot, I think, something like that. And they're punctuated and rather formal, quite English, punctuated by these U pyramids. I've got 4 running down this side and 3 running down this side. I lost one at the end, but I've kind of thought it's fine without it. And then I inherited this beautiful old apple tree and this incredible big Magnolia grandiflora above us, which I have a love-hate relationship with. I love it in the wintertime because it's evergreen and it really creates a magical kind of canopy. And in the summertime, I kind of hate it because it sheds its leaves all summer, literally from this moment onwards for about 3 good months. I come out here and it's littered with leaves. So that kind of drives me crazy. But the good thing about it is it keeps the conservatory really cool. And it has wonderful flowers for the night flying moths. So it's great. The flowers are great for the pollinators, which is very important. So the borders down each side of the garden are mixed with deciduous shrubs. So I've got lots of hydrangea Annabelle and hydrangea paniculata limelight and at the back. And then running down the front of the border, I've got a combination of geraniums and geum, totally tangerine, and euphorbia, and a variety of other sun-loving perennials. This is the south-facing border, so this is the sunny border. So this will, I can have all the sort of things that, like catmint and the pizza, that really love the sunshine. And this is the north-facing border, so you'll see that it's got much more sort of foliage, foxgloves and ferns, things that really appreciate a shadier aspect. So, and then again a big hydrangea limelight and some roses that kind of, the sun sort of in the summertime sets in that corner. So the roses on this very far corner closest to the house get enough sun to perform beautifully. And then down the middle of the garden, I've got my wildflower meadow, which I am absolutely devoted to because it's so rich with nectar for the pollinators, and it's, I know I'm doing my very best for them by having this and having long grass where the insects can grow and hibernate and overwinter and get what they need in the springtime. Really makes me feel great. So, and it changes every year. So here we've got the red campion, and I threaded also through some allium along here, which is this sort of purpley onion sort of round shaped bulb. So the bees and the pollinators love this. So this is sorrel, and we've got the white daisy, which I can't remember its name right now, which is very odd because I know it so well, and fennel, and lots of grasses, and buttercups. This is our native buttercup, which is something that I really hope I really am trying to cultivate the yellow flower that to run the whole way through, because I think it's so pretty, and might be a weed for some, but for others it's just I don't know, it's so countrified for me, the buttercup. And then I'm also in here, I've got Verbena bonariensis. I've got that threaded through the whole of the meadow, and this will sort of dance above. It will sort of grow to this height, and it'll sort of dance above, and the bees and the butterflies love it. So it's all about creating, you know, pit stops and feeding stations for lots of the bees. And you'll see here, there's a great big fat bumblebee, you know, right on the red campion here. Can you see that? So I just think it's magical. I find it, there are bees and butterflies everywhere, but I find this the most captivating. It kind of soothes my soul, as it were. So this is the meadow, and it's easy. I was lucky enough to get turf. You can buy wildflower meadow turf and just roll it out. What it really wants is very thin, porous soil, so you don't have to enrich it or prepare it at all. So it's really easy to establish and create something rather special. So I try to include a lot of this in my clients' gardens too. You know, I'm always suggesting. And then down this side, they're just kind of going over, but over in front of me on my boundary are some climbing roses, which I am particularly wedded to. I've got a series of, I think there's the pink one at this end is the Generous Gardener, and then there's Madame Alfred Carrière to start with, and then this is Blairy number 2. Sadly, they are just going over, but they really do add, they kind of create this sort of lovely sense of English countryside, which I think is so important. And then here we are, so we have some foxgloves too. Again, these, you'll often see the bees going right up inside the foxgloves. Oh, there's one that's just come out. So foxgloves are great for the pollinators. So is this little geranium phaeum. This is a really early flowering perennial, which loves the shade. It's kind of peppered through the wildflower meadow too, and I just leave it because it's so early to flower. And when the pollinators first come out of hibernation, they're desperately hungry. So early flowering plants are really good to include in the garden. And then, oh yeah, I've got some bramble here too. Weed, but we put up with all things. All comers are welcome. So in the wintertime, I really try not to tidy the garden too much. I leave the leaves. You know, there's this whole new movement about allowing the wildlife habitat to remain. So I will cut the meadow midsummer, probably early July, down to the ground, and leave it so that for a day or two to allow the seed to drop, and then I'll clear all the debris away, because if you leave the debris, it's nitrogen rich, which the wildflowers won't like because they want a thin, poor diet. So I will cart that all up and bag that and put it in my compost, and also get it collected by the green waste man, and then I leave it. Then it will grow back. It'll probably get to about this high in the summertime, by the end of the summer, and then I just leave it to overwinter. So it remains kind of tall and grassy and lovely over the winter. And I pretty much do the same to the borders. So if you come with me back behind these two screens, I've got my sort of secret hiding place back here, which is where I like to spend my time hiding from everyone else. Here I am at the back, very, very back of the garden, behind a sort of set of 3 trellis screens covered in this gorgeous evergreen climber called Trachyospermum jasminoides. And it's highly scented and great for the pollinators. I also have it climbing up the back of my house. And what I've learned over the years is that my bedroom, which is above the kitchen, is open, is exposed on 3 walls. So it's quite cold. And the track at the back of the house has created this real, in the summertime it's much cooler, and in the wintertime it's much warmer. So it really is extraordinary how plants can actually help. It's not extraordinary at all, it's a well-known fact, but plants really can help insulate buildings and, you know, keep things cool in the summer and warm in the wintertime. So that's a good reason for clothing your house in lovely climbers. And this is kind of my sort of little workstation back here. I've got lovely old metal buckets, which I'm very keen on. And these are all my bulbs from the spring that are now going over and dying back. So it looks terrible back here at the moment, but that is kind of part of the life cycle of the growing world. And in here I've got lovely herbaceous perennials and foxgloves. This is one of my favorite perennials called Naudia macedonica, and it's a scabiosa in the scabiosa family, and the bees and butterflies love it. So, as they do the foxgloves. And here's more terracotta. So I've got a sort of series of terracotta pots here, some with summer flowers, some with bulbs. And then this is a summer flowering planting combination here with Nepeta, Scabiosa, and then Acamilla mollis and a little geum. And my compost bin, which is very good, and just a little table, and my shed, of course. Not very beautiful, but you have to have a place where the ugliness can be, really. So if you come with me, we'll go back down this side of the garden, the sunny side, and we can look at things from this view and this angle. So this is my focal point, which is my lovely basket, and it's a wicker basket. It's vintage, and a lovely antique dealer who I get lots of my clients' furniture from thought that I should have it as a reward for being such a good patron. And it's a great harvesting basket, and in the spring it was full of tulips, and now I've self-sown or sown in situation some little seedlings of nigella, which is love and a miss, which is a sweet little summer flowering annual, so I'm hopeful that that's going to kind of explode in this frothy sea of sort of blue haze in a little moment's time. And then this border again, it's got some lovely roses in here. So this is Bosco Bell, which is so pretty. And then this little one here is I think this is, I don't know what that is actually. I couldn't tell you, but that's Bosco Bell. And this, look at this is so pretty. Look at the color of this. I think this one is Charles de Mille, just going over. So beautiful, but I might be wrong. I can't really, I'm not very good on my roses. I mean, I am, but I'm not. And then again, climbing roses along the boundary. This is a lovely big, another member of the Scabious family, Scabiosa. This is Cephalaria gigantea, and this gets lovely and tall and has creamy colored pincushion flowers like the Naudia behind the screens, and the bees love it. Again, full of, look at this little moth on here. You've got to come and zoom in on this. I mean, that is so exciting to me. So we're providing nectar for that little friend. And again, my yew pyramids, there was box in the garden, boxwood, but it had the blight and the caterpillar. And so I bit the bullet and took it all out and put the yew in, and I have never regretted that decision because it's absolutely maintenance free. You have to clip it, of course, but there's no spraying, there's nothing to do except for enjoy it. And in the winter time, when all this will have died back, the yew pyramids are the thing that kind of hold the whole garden together. So it's the form, in and amongst the chaos. And they kind of disappear in the summertime a bit, but in the wintertime they really come to their own. And I love a clip shape in a garden. I think if it's all frothy and pretty, it lacks a certain amount of style and form, and these provide that. So they're really, I wouldn't be without them. So I might pick a flower or two and take you inside, and maybe I'll show you how to condition cut flowers from the garden, particularly wildflowers, because if you don't condition them, they go over really quickly. They just wilt. Oh look, here's a lovely big fat bumblebee. The most interesting thing about the meadow is this is red clover. Do you see that? There are so many different varieties of bumblebees, which I'm only learning about now. That one is very yellow and not black. Sometimes you see them and they're very black and white, but that one is just kind of a yellowy one. When I pick the wildflowers, which I tend to do, I'll pick to a set of leaves. So this is again the red campion, which has gone over, but I quite like this. I think the seed head is just as pretty as the flower. So I'll pick to a pair of buds here. And then for some reason I always turn it upside down. I don't know why. No gathering, no lovely, beautiful basket, sadly. And then I'll pick at a set of leaves and turn it upside down. I feel like it kind of prevents any of the goodness from washing down the stem. And then here's some geum. This is totally tangerine, which you saw inside. I've got a lot of it inside. And I grow this because I love orange so much. You can see it's sort of slightly running down the border. It's just going over, but I plant things in my garden that complement the colors in my house. So the orange of the geum really works well in my drawing room and in my kitchen. And I think it makes sense to me to have, and I do ask my clients when when we're discussing color and color combinations, what the rooms are going to be decorated in that look onto the garden. And it's a really lovely way to have that sort of link between the outside and the in, just having one or two colors that complement each other, both inside and out. So I always ask that question. See, here's a very different bumblebee here. That one's much more yellow. I mean, look at them. Woo! Okay, so I'm going to pick a geum as well. And again, I go right down to a pair of leaves. I love the fennel too. Don't you love the fennel? So I've got a bit of fennel running down the border too, which I think is so frothy and pretty. And the flowers of fennel are great for the pollinators. So yeah. And I love how it kind of ebbs and flows and kind of undulates the whole way down. I think it creates a really there's a lot of movement. And when there's a little gentle breeze, it kind of, it's very captivating. So maybe we'll go inside and do a little bit of flower arranging and tablescaping. That sounds like a good idea. So I'm coming back inside, and I'd love to step by step talk you through how I lay a table, because I think it's something that I really enjoy doing. And but before we get embroiled in that, I'm just going to boil the kettle because I want to teach you how to condition the flowers. So I'll boil the kettle and then we'll come on to conditioning and we'll lay the table together. So I always start with an underlay, because I think a cloth on top of a hard table is a particularly luxurious feeling. So I have this very patchy old underlay, and I think you can get them exactly to the same dimension of your table. So yeah, this goes down first. I love to add lots and lots of layers and texture and fabric to the table. And I think it looks really lovely when it's layered up. And then I've got this lovely old bit of Indian fabric that I've had forever, which I love to kind of put on top as well. So again, creating just extra layers, and it's kind of reversible. So sometimes I use this side, and I might use this side today because it's so bright and cheery. And my tablecloth, you can see, it doesn't quite fit the length of the table, but I really don't think that matters. I feel like it's all about, not making it too perfect. I don't know. I feel like our lives are so concerned about being perfect that when it's not, I don't think it matters. That's my philosophy anyway. So that's the sort of layering, the first 2-3 layers. And then I think it's fun to add a mat as well. Why not? So laying the table for 6. And again, color-wise, I think yellow and green is so spring-like and pretty. We're in May, and I think yellow and green just feel kind of right. So they go on. I love to entertain, but I do it in a very relaxed way. There'll be food on the counter, which I will have. I do like to cook, so it's very rare that I buy food for a dinner party. But it does take time, and when you're sort of busy gardening, I find it's hard to come up with the right amount of time to do all these things. So I spread them out, but I do nonetheless. And I think a lunch party is often one of the nicest ways. And so spoiling it just feels rather a little bit naughty and a little bit decadent having lunch with friends. But anyway, so I've got my tablecloth and now my sort of Indian patchworky cloth on top. And then the next thing are these lovely white ceramic plates, which I think are really lovely and fun, quite chunky, but great. And what I really like to do is layer. So I also have these lovely antique plates. So I'll put a stack of them on the table, even if we don't use them. I'll always put a stack on the table because I just think a stack of lovely old plates looks so pretty. And I've got some pretty green ones as well, so they'll go on top. Each one is different, which I find so kind of beguiling. I just find them so pretty and colorful and delicate. And I think, again, having some old things makes it table look a bit more special. And then I have these lovely stripy napkins, which I think are so spring-like. And again, they don't, there's a bit of yellow and green in them, but I just think they're so sweet. They've got sort of daffodils and again, they don't really match, but I think they all kind of go. So I quite like a very eclectic table that is colorful and bright. And yeah, so they're here. And the stripes are all going in different directions too, which is rather amusing. Clearly laundry. I don't know who's in charge. So that's that. And then I might do the flowers next. So I arranged these this morning, conditioned them, and I think when people arrive, I think it's really nice to have it, rather full and busy. And then if it's too much and you can't really see one another, what I might do is I might just sort of move them to the side. But I think when people arrive, it's really nice to sort of have the vision that you want of the table. So I have these crazy stripy cups, which again, I think are just so fun and add another level of kind of pattern. I love the stripes. So there's so many different patterns here. There's stripes and stripes, the floral, more stripes, some daisies, and to me it's beginning to really feel interesting and you know, there's a lot of detail, which I think makes it a nice, you know, really outstanding place to be. And then I've got more color, more color. I've got these rather gorgeous pink and orange Murani glasses, and I think they add, again, just more pattern and more color to the table. So I would probably serve wine in those and water in these. And then cutlery, and I have some rather fun bamboo handled cutlery, which I think is, again, a lovely contrast, you know, to have a bit of weightiness to the table, you know, not all light and pretty, and but the brown, I think, is very pleasing to the overall design of the table. And tablescaping really is a thing, isn't it? I think it's almost as fun as coming up with the guest list and cooking for your friends. I think laying a table, or setting a table, as you say in the States, is a really lovely thing to do. I get a lot of satisfaction and joy from you know, sitting at a beautifully laid table, but also doing it myself. So I think it's a very nice thing to do. And don't you think the brown goes so well? I think the brown really sort of makes it feel less kind of girly, as it were. Then I've got these crazy glug jugs up here, which I have to carefully extract from this ridiculous setup I have. But they are my water jugs, so I'll fill these up. And I love to put lemon and fresh mint in the water. I think that's just a very simple, nice way of making the water, or even fresh cucumber. I think fresh cucumber in water is a really nice, tiny extra treat, which I think is well worth doing. So that will go there. So yeah, I think that's pretty much how I would do it. I would have serving dishes down here at each end, and I think it's really nice to have everything on platters that you can pass to one another around the table. I think it creates conversation and camaraderie, and it's a nice way. And then you can take what you want and the amount you want, and you know, there's sort of no pressure, as it were, to, if you're presented with a plated up plate of food, it's often difficult to sort of get exactly what you want to eat. So yeah, so I think that's kind of a joyful way to lay the table. So now that the table's pretty much ready to go, I think it'd be really nice to just briefly walk you through conditioning flowers and why it's important to do so and how you do it. And it's very simple, but basically I've boiled the kettle, and I will now pour that into just a very bog standard Pyrex jug, just a couple of inches deep. And then I'll have something to put the conditioned flowers in. It's important that they transition from the boiled water into their final resting home. So this is just a little green bottle, which I collect. I've got lots of lovely old bottles here, which I think are really fun. And I like adding those into the table, as well as the sort of bigger arrangements. I think it's fun to kind of have varying heights of flowers on the table. And then I also think it's nice to add some candles, which I'll do at the end. So here we are. We've got our boiling water, and we've got our freshly picked little blooms, and it doesn't take long for them to start going over. So you have to, I do it quite quickly, and I often do it while I'm in the garden. I'll set this all up and with my cup of coffee in the morning on Saturday, and I'll condition them right away. So it's really important, so this is, you can see it's already looking a bit tired, is to take any of the green leaves off the stem, and then you plunge the stem into the boiled water, into the boiling water, cut below the water level, count for a few seconds, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then in it goes into its jug. Again, remove the green, and it's a good idea. I learned recently not to pull the green leaves off the stem. It's far better to break the green leaf off, because by stripping the green leaf down or pulling it down, it often weakens the integrity of the stem. So it's better just to twist the leaves off the stem and not pull them down. And then that goes in there. And then here's a very beautiful bit of grass that I picked from the meadow, which I absolutely adore. So again, just cut the foliage off, the leaves rather, below. If it's slightly woodier, I would count for, instead of 5 to 7 seconds, I might count to 10 to 12 seconds. And this is slightly, just ever so slightly woodier. So, but see, that to me is very pleasing, very simple. There are 3 different things in there. And then I've got the seed heads from the red campion, which again, I really like the look of. It's different from the flower itself, but I think it's equally pleasing. And then I kind of approximate the height of it. I think I need it a bit shorter than that, so I'll cut it a bit shorter out of the water, and then I'll cut it to, I hope, its final height in the water. And there the air bubbles are rising, so I know that this is working. And it's good to cut flowers on the angle, the stems on the angle, because then they have more surface area to draw up the water, to keep them happy for longer. I have a lot of good gardening gear because I'm, at it all the time. And Milwaukee, which is a Japanese brand, make these flower scissors, and they're wonderful. They hold their sharpness for a long time. They're very, very pleasing on the hand and to handle. And yeah, they're ergonomically good. And yeah, I like the brand a lot. You can see I've got a pile of them here, the Milwaukee with the yellow handles, and they're really, really, and they keep their edge really well. So they're good. They're good to. They stay sharp basically. So I'm a great fan, and I also have their gloves too, the Milwaukee gloves. They're really good too. So there we go. So that's just a little, and I might add a few of those to the table as well, threaded down the middle. And then I think no table is complete, even if it's lunch in the daytime, without a candle and a candlestick. So these are lovely Astier candlesticks, French, and with great big yellow. And again, like flowers, I think candles should be at varying heights. I think you want some tall and some short to create sort of gentle sense of movement. And I don't think they have to be set out equally. I don't think they have to match. I don't think they have to be, in any way, shape or form perfect. I just think choose them. And I would never in a million squillion years ever have or use or choose a white candle when you can have a yellow candle or a pink candle or an orange candle. So I think color, again, I have banged on about it a lot, but I think, that is pure joy to me. And with the green of the glug jug and the plates, I just feel like it's just an extra layer of prettiness. So there we go, the table. Homeworthy, thank you very much for coming. I think you've taken up quite enough of my time. I need to get back to work and back to my garden. The sun is shining. Thank you for coming. Bye.
Hi Homeworthy, my name's Miranda Utridge. We're here in London. Welcome to my home. Come on in. I'm Miranda, founder of Maison Fête, and welcome to my home here in Battersea. We found this place a little over a year ago. It's a 19th century terrace kind of cottage house, and built in an estate that was originally built for artisans and workers, with schools, recreation, and a lot of community-focused buildings. And we are lucky enough to be joined by our family dogs, Georgiana and Ophelia. They are on a little vacay in London right now. So welcome, I can't wait to show you around, and let's get started. So this is my living space, and one of my favorite things about this space is the original Victorian fireplace and tiles. I wanted this space to feel super cozy and warm. One of my favorite pieces that I own is this tapestry here. It was actually one of the first kind of big purchases I made when I became an antique dealer, and it's been in every house that I've lived in since I bought it. And I found it with my mum in France, actually. So it was a pretty kind of proud moment to buy my first tapestry piece. A lot of what I buy is antiques and secondhand furniture, and I'm a big DIY person as well. You can see some of the molding in this space downstairs was put in by my partner and I, just to add a little bit more of an historical touch and aspect to the house. So because I specialize in antique tableware sourcing and selling, I do collect a lot of it for myself, and I find that it makes for the best home decor. I also love collecting old books, and as you can see, I've got on these shelves here, along with some antique plates and some creamware pieces that I love to put out on display. This was a piece that I also found in France, where I get most of my antiques from. I actually found this cupboard separately and paired the two together to create a bit of a vignette here. And I love kind of blue and white porcelain and ceramics, as you can see. And I also got these lovely foxgloves from my neighbor's garden. She was very kind to let me have some for today. So I've got quite a few little art pieces that I've just collected from markets and brocantes over the years that I like to kind of layer and place throughout the house. Anything from etchings to oil paintings. I like to make a lot of my own lampshades, actually, from old fabric that I have. I've done this one here, and I love this indigo and the birds and this little ruffle moment. And my friend Holly from Fleur London gave me some flowers for today as well. She's a florist. I would say that my style is probably old and eclectic. I've got a lot of antique pieces that I love, but I don't seem to hone in on any specific era or time period. As you'll see in the dining room, I'm a big fan of blue and white porcelain and ceramics. I also love creamware ceramics as well. So anything that has kind of those deep, rich antique blues and greens, like the tapestries, I'm quite drawn to those kind of colors. I love collecting books that will inspire my tables and styling. This one my mother actually just gave me, Martha Stewart, which is a classic. So whenever I've got an event to style or am going to host a dinner party, I'll always have a quick look through some of these books to get some inspiration. This is actually a little DIY project. My partner wanted something that he can put his feet up on when we're watching movies. So being such a small space, I wanted something that I could kind of tuck to the side and then pop out when he wanted to put his feet up. So I just took some fabric and reupholstered this little vintage bench. So this mirror my mum gave me as a Christmas present a few years ago, and it's an 18th century mirror, and it's one of my favorite pieces. And I actually got it before we moved in here, but thankfully it was the perfect size to go above the mantle and kind of become the centerpiece of the room. And coming off the living room is our dining room. And when we first walked into this place over a year ago, I knew that it was for us just because of the amount of space that we had compared to the old flat that we were in, where everything was kind of jammed into one room. I love that this house has an open plan, but everything still feels quite cozy. We got this dining table, we went with round, and it actually extends, so when we have guests over, we can extend it and host more people. I've got another tapestry piece here, which I found in France. We put up molding in this space as well. I really love that this dining space has these built-in shelves here, which we created a little kind of bar area. So when we have friends over, we can have drinks. So we've got that set up here. And then you'll see my collection of 18th century Chinese export porcelain, which I do use sometimes, but most of the time it is on these shelves. We've got a little porcelain lamp here, blue and white to match the rest of the blue and white that's going on the shelves. I've got this beautiful English silver tray that I found at an antique shop just down the road, actually. And this piece of art I really love. It's 1950s charcoal drawing of, a teapot, a tureen, a champagne flute. So just more tableware, inspired decor. So I find a lot of these pieces when I'm traveling for work. I founded a company called Maison Fête, and I source and style antique tableware, which is available to purchase through our website online. And we also do event styling and photography styling. I started Maison Fête 3 years ago in the hopes to teach people the joys of dining with antique tableware pieces and to elevate their everyday dining. So it's amazing now. We've just started doing a lot of workshops now between France and London, which is super great to meet my clients and customers and teach them hands-on how to set a table, how to work with antique pieces, and how to arrange florals. I've spent quite a few years now collecting antiques in London and in France, but I'm actually not from here. I am from Dallas, Texas. I've been in London for 5 years now, and before that I was in Australia, in Sydney, for 8 years, where I studied interior design. And I came to London and took a job working in event design. My brother was living here and my family was part-time in France, so I wanted to be a little bit closer to everyone here. I picked up this chandelier here at a market just outside of London called Kempton and found the lampshades online to go with it. I love what it's done for the dining space because, as you can see, the whole house came with overhead lighting, so I wanted to add a lighting feature in here. So like everything else in this house, I got this console table from a market that was here in London, and it fit perfectly on this little wall to complete our dining space. And I use the bottom half of it is storage for my copious amounts of plates and tableware and crockery that I collect. And then I have some of my other favorite pieces, some gilded bronze candle holders and some really beautiful 18th century cutlery that I put on display because I love to look at it every day. This is the original box that it came in, and it's actually made of fish skin, which is quite interesting, instead of leather. These are just little pieces that I've picked up over the years, just loved for no particular reason. I don't know, they just spoke to me. This is actually one of my favorite plates. It's all hand painted, and I'm so sad that there's only one of them that I've discovered. That's why it's up on the wall. So next we have the kitchen, and it's just through here. Here we are in my kitchen, and this is one of my favorite spaces for entertaining because we have this big bar here. I love the wooden countertops. And the first thing that I did when we moved into this space before unpacking a single box was putting up wallpaper in here just to give it a little bit of character. I chose this beautiful pale green floral trellis wallpaper, which makes it feel like a little English cottage in here. We spend a lot of time in the kitchen. Both my partner and I love to cook. We're cooking every day. So I would say this is the most used space. So like with any rental house, there are always a few things that you would like to change that you can't. Although I do love this kitchen, the cabinets aren't my favorite color ever, but I find that with the wallpaper that I chose, it kind of offsets the brightness of them. There's really no more space in this house. I think every cabinet and every cupboard and every closet is full of tableware pieces. So as you can see, I've even have baskets and ceramic bowls on top of my cabinets here. So I have my collection of antique chopping boards here, which come in handy for summer dining and eating out in the garden. My other favorite part of the kitchen is this window here that looks out to our garden. I've got all my herbs in the windowsill. This is my favorite wall of the house, I think. I've got my china cabinet here where I keep some of my favorite and most special antique tableware pieces. But first I'll show you these wonderful little sconces that I picked up at a market in France. And they've got this beautiful little floral detail. And I've paired them with these embroidered artwork pieces here of flower bouquets tied with ribbon. We've got our extra dining chairs on either side of the cabinet for when we have dinner parties. And each of them are these beautiful tapestry pillows in this green velvet that I really love. On top of the cabinet, I have a collection of embossed terracotta pots. These are, I think, are just so fun, and you'll see actually out in the garden how much I really love antique terracotta pots by how many I have. But these ones are quite special, and they're all a little bit different. I especially love this one here with the trellis design. This gorgeous blue and white tureen, which you can see has been repaired and stapled. And most people would probably turn away from a piece that's been damaged, but to me, it just goes to show how much someone loved it. They loved it so much that even when it broke, they took the time to repair it. And it really speaks through the piece. So it's on display there. And then if you open the cabinet, the first thing you see is my collection of Annie goblets. So this is a goblet that I designed myself for Maison Fête. And it's based off of the Georgian green petite goblet. As you can see here, in the 18th century when they were made to be very small because someone was always filling up your glass. And my mum had a collection of these antique goblets, and we loved them so much, but we could never use them at dinner parties because you couldn't really drink from them, 2 sips and you were done. So I made it my mission to recreate them in a larger scale, but keep as much of the original shape and integrity of their original characteristic as possible. And then I named it after my mother. So this is the Annie goblet. So I also have a collection of 18th century porcelain plates. I have this beautiful green border and floral design, which kind of lays the backdrop of our hutch. So you can also see a small collection of antique cutlery pieces here. Back then, everyone used to bring their own cutlery with them to dinner parties, and it was kind of a status symbol. So they were really ornate and often beaded or hand carved or decorated in gold and jewels. And so these are a few pieces that I've found over the years that are just absolutely beautiful. And I just find it so interesting that people used to be so conscious of the pieces that they ate dinner with every night and how different it is now. And then this pair of glasses I actually bought myself as a birthday present a few years ago. These are 18th century hand engraved. This space is obviously the main transition out into the garden, and I wanted to keep it quite open because it also has the opening into the kitchen. So a lot of the times, you know, we're entertaining in this space, but I knew I wanted to put my china cabinet here with all of my favorite pieces. So that was kind of the main focus. So next I'd love to show you our garden, so come with me. So we're super lucky that it's summer now in London, an actual summer, not raining summer. I love to garden. I love spending time out in the garden. I love working with my hands. So I've done quite a lot to this garden since we moved in. There were a few things, but a lot of it I planted myself. So I'll just show you around a little bit. We've got some beautiful climbing hydrangea and jasmine that I'm hoping eventually will kind of cover this window, around this window here, and frame that quite nicely. And then over here is my little potting station. I have quite the collection of antique terracotta pots. I do end up using all of them. It's kind of like on a rotation, but I absolutely love them. And I especially love the smaller ones, which are great for little herbs or seedlings. So I don't quite know how this happened, but our parsley has gone insane and it's kind of taken over this corner of the garden. We also have a little bit of apple mint here that I've planted. And yes, we now use a lot of parsley when we cook. These haven't bloomed yet, but these are Japanese anemones, which they'll come in later in the year. And we've got a little garden bench here, this is one of my favorite spots to come and sit, and also Ophelia's favorite spot. The thing I love most about this home, I think, is definitely the garden. When it's warm and sunny, we spend most of our time out here. We'll eat breakfast out here. We'll have dinner out here. My partner is South African, so we have a lot of braais out here during the summer. It's so nice to be outside, and to have this kind of garden space in London is such a treat. This is actually a basket that I found on the side of the road and decided to plant raspberries and strawberries in it. And this strawberry plant is going on like 3 years strong now, which is quite huge. And then I've got some sweet peas that I only planted about a month ago that have just gone absolutely crazy. And then a few more hydrangeas because I love hydrangeas. So like I said, we dine outside a lot during the warmer months, and I'm always setting a table like I have today. We've got some beautiful peonies, which are in season at the moment, and the inspiration for this table. I love the different shades of pink, and so I've used some of my antique pink and white porcelain china for the plates, and just on some nice white linen. And we also have our Annie goblet, but in the new clear version, which just came out last month. These chairs came from my parents' house in France, and they're wonderful. They fold up, but they're very much just kind of like French garden bistro chairs, and they've really come in handy this summer. I couldn't only have tableware decor inside, I had to bring it outside as well. So I've got this blue and white Rouen style platter that I've kind of popped on the wall here, and you're so lucky to see the jasmine in bloom at the moment. It completely surrounds the entire garden and it just smells amazing this time of year. So let's head back inside. I'd love to show you more of the house. So this is the primary bedroom, and when we first moved in, this room was painted this kind of baby blue gray color, and I tried really hard to decorate it for a few months and was just not having the best of luck with the pieces that I already had. So we asked the landlords if we could paint actually both of the bedrooms, and luckily they said yes. So we went with this color, which is Travertine Mid by Little Green Company, and it's made the room feel so much warmer, so much more cozy, and we're so happy with it. So this room also has really great built-ins with the shelves and side tables on either side of the bed, and a full wall of wardrobes on the other side, which is really hard to find in London, so that was quite a win. So the headboard and the lampshades I made myself from some tapestry style fabric that I had. Like I said, I like to make my own lampshades, and I thought it'd be really fun to match them to the headboard. And the deep blues and greens and kind of golden tones from the fabric paired really well with this paint color. So I was very happy about that. And that's kind of the theme for the rest of the room, this kind of dark blue that you see in this accent pillow here and in the curtains, and even through the painting above the bed and some of the porcelain pieces, more tableware pieces that I have on the shelves here. So on this side of the room, we have two big windows that look out onto our street. And I've put up these curtains here in this dark blue and kind of cream shade that match the colorway of the room. Okay, so now I'll show you the guest room. So this is our guest bedroom, and I wanted this room to be super inviting and really cozy. So we went with this beautiful green stone paint, again by Little Green Company. Green is my favorite color as well, so I really loved this room. One thing I love about this room is the exposed brick wall and the fireplace. It's the only room in the house that has exposed brick. And I just love how it makes this room feel like it's in a English countryside cottage. So there is a bit of a theme to this room that I think just kind of happened naturally, but it's very floral themed, which I love flowers as well, so I'm not opposed to it. I found this collection of vintage floral etching prints on Facebook Marketplace actually, and thought they would go perfectly in here above the bed. Still, of course, have a few tableware pieces, lovely antique porcelain floral plates. So this mirror I found at a market in France when I was with my mum actually, and it was one of those pieces where it literally stopped me in my tracks. It was raining and we were actually on our way out of the market, and everyone kind of started packing up, and I saw this mirror leaning against a table on the floor, and it was getting soaked as well, but I just fell in love with it. It's got this beautiful kind of old, what used to be velvet, gold velvet, and then these hand embroidered bees on them. Now the actual mirror itself isn't old, or the wooden frame within it, but this fabric with these bees, I want to say is quite old, possibly even 17th century. So being the floral garden themed room, the bee mirror had to go here. So I found this Georgian cabinet online, and I knew I wanted a larger piece of furniture in here because it was going to be the only piece of furniture in here. And I just absolutely love the craftsmanship on this piece and how it almost makes the room feel bigger because it is so big. And the great thing about it, a desk as well. Home to me is making lifelong memories with family and friends. Thank you so much for coming to visit Homeworthy. Until next time, bye.
Hi Homeworthy, I'm Fiona. Welcome to my home in London. Come on in, I can't wait to show you round.
I'm Alison Kenworthy, the founder of Homeworthy, and we're now offering a membership plan that gives our supporters early and exclusive access to new videos.
Hi, Homeworthy.
I'm Roz.
You're here at my home in Los Angeles?
Come on in. I can't wait to show you around.
With this membership, we invite you to open more doors, discovering new homes, rooms, and personalities available only to those with the keys to our guest house. You'll be part of a community of people who are just as passionate as you are about interior design. Before today's episode, click the join button below to support all of the storytelling we do on this channel. Our growing community of members help to directly fund more videos so we can capture these extraordinary homes from around the world. So join today to receive early and exclusive access to new Homeworthy videos. You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hello, my name is Fiona DeLees. I'm a colour consultant and I'm based in London. We're here in my home and I'm here to tell you what I love about my home, what I love about colour and what I love about my work. My home is a Georgian cottage. It was built around 1750. It's a mostly timber framed structure. So it's a very quirky building with lime walls. It moves, it breathes. It has a lot of atmosphere. The light moves in very mysterious ways, which is one of the reasons why I absolutely love it. So when I first viewed the property, I literally had to wade through brambles to get to the front door. The building had been unlived in for about 7 years. And when I walked in, I knew instantly this was the house for me. It was calm, quiet, you could really feel the love in here. The previous owners hadn't renovated it since the 1970s, so it pretty much was a gut job. There wasn't even any central heating here. The bathroom was downstairs, there was a Jack and Jill bedroom upstairs, which I wanted to change. So it really was a project about bringing the house back to life. And I had gone through some big life changes prior to that. So it felt very much a symbiotic process in restoring myself, healing myself, restoring the house, healing the house literally. It has lime walls, and what I learned for the first time is that the house needs to breathe. So I went about using lime paints to protect the walls and to find the colours that really worked for my personal story, my narrative, my heritage. The process was really difficult because it meant bringing up floors, moving walls around. It's a listed building, so I had to get consent, which was incredibly difficult, working with the local council at times. But it was really worth it in the end for me. So we're in my living room. I don't have a formal entrance. The Georgian cottages sometimes didn't, so you would have a front door that walks straight into the living room. It's a double-fronted cottage with windows on either side. So I've had to make the space cosy as an entrance, but also practical and functional as the main living room area. So I'd love to show you around at some of my favourite pieces. One of my prized possessions is my collection of woodland scenes, and these are things that I've just picked up on my travels. Every single picture here is a painting. It varies in age, some are antique, some are mid-century. And what's really important for me about this whole wall here is that I feel I'm submerged in a woodland. It's a real connection to where I grew up in Hampstead by Hampstead Heath. and just to come in and see the trees against this fantastic green wall just lifts my spirits. I have the woods on my doorstep too, so there is a narrative here, not only with my past, but also with where I happen to live. So this is one of my favourite features, my woodland scene. So this armoire here is, I was told it was Bavarian, but I have a feeling it might be Italian. It was bought from a thrift store, and it has the most beautiful carvings of basically an urn with what I think are acanthus leaves coming out, some scrolls, and then on either side different features, which is what I particularly love. So I like playing on symmetry, but I also like there to be a difference in the symmetry. So here we have the fruit with the pears and the grapes and possibly a pomegranate, whereas here we've got something that might represent vegetables like a split pod of peas, and you can just see the peas coming out. It's a really beautiful piece. I understand that it was adapted by somebody in the 1950s on the inside who was a tobacconist, and he had put shelves inside originally so he could dry his tobacco leaves. It's a very special piece, and because I don't have an entrance hallway, I've adapted it so that it houses all my shoes, coats, scarves, hats, gloves, bags. So when you come in, you don't see any of that at all. It's just neatly hidden in here with a few hats across the top. The pots are really special to me. These are antique salting pots. So originally they would have been filled with salt and meat would have been put in there to preserve them. I absolutely adore the glazed patina on them, and salting pots would sometimes be tilted for ease of access, so they roll about quite nicely, and I think they make a really lovely feature into the living room. They kind of remind me of that whole concept of from plant to plate, something that's really important to me. The pot that has gained a bit of popularity is actually this very special confit pot over here, which I call the Toscana pot. I got it on a sourcing trip to Italy in Tuscany, and it has the most beautiful patina. The image of the pot was featured here in Homes and Gardens magazine, which won Colour of the Month award with Edward Bulmer Natural Paint. So this pot has been used on quite a few styling shoots, and it's my lucky pot, I call it. It's very different from your average confit pot, which tends to be more yellow and plain, such as this one here, which is a lovely big one here, as you can see. This is a particularly special one because it has holes in the bottom, so it would have been used for drainage. That one over there has a paint patina on it that I've never seen anywhere before. Another two of my favourite pots in my room are the antique Polynesian water vessels, which have 3 spouts. They're handmade and they have the most beautiful hand patterns around them. I've never seen anything like them before. They're very rare and they're very precious to me. All my pots are precious to me because I relate pots very much to the human condition, us being vessels, carrying what's important to us in our lives, and pots originally would have held commodities that were important to us too, such as water, wines and oils. And speaking on that, I can't wait to show you my very special walnut jug collection in the kitchen later on. This fantastic sofa I picked up in an auction for £50 and I absolutely love it. I've thrown a whole load of scatter cushions on it. It's so comfortable to relax on. It's actually long enough to sleep on, not that I ever have, but it is long enough as a single bed. It's a great piece to relax on in the sun, reading a book, especially in the winter when you just get that heat falling onto your body. It's one of my favourite places to sit so I can just look outside. And I also love the random combination of cushions as well, just mixing up the colours in a very natural and organic way. I love decorating with nature, and I usually use real live flowers or dried flowers such as this arrangement here. Particularly having been a florist for a long time, I love to forage with what I can find in the garden or the outside. But these particular branches here are artificial, and I put them up usually for Christmas, and they end up staying up for a lot longer because I just think they're really sweet and cute, and they remind me of the roses outside in the garden that have the little red buds that are starting to come up. So I sometimes leave them up there. I'm very inspired by natural elements in the house, so I try to bring them in wherever I can. And being a Georgian cottage with quite low ceilings, light can be a challenge for growing plants, so I like to add these little touches of nature wherever I can. This is the original fireplace here. It's really deep, and I was looking for a cast iron grate and I couldn't find one I quite liked, and I actually found this chucked outside somebody's house down the road one evening when I was out jogging. So I brought it back home. It was incredibly heavy, but what I really love about it is actually got the emblem of the fleur-de-lis, which is quite a sweet, quirky little ode to my surname, Delis. So at the back there are 3 fleur-de-lis signs. I also love to throw lavender on it when I've got a live fire. I grow lavender in the garden, and so does my neighbour, especially with the south-facing sun here. So when I've got the fire on, I love to scatter lots of lavender on there. It sparks, it smells, and I have a little pot of it here, and I just literally throw it on with the little shovel here, and it just makes a really cosy winter evening's fire. These 2 chairs here are part of the same set with the sofa. It was basically the deal. I couldn't take just the sofa, I had to take the chairs as well. And as it happens, they worked out really well. One of them is literally collapsed underneath, but that becomes the dog chair with a blanket on it whenever anybody visits with a dog. So that's the allocated dog throne, whereas guests get to use the hair-free one. I actually often hear from people this concern about mixing red and green, and it perhaps making a room feel a bit Christmassy. For me, I actually don't think that red and green together looks anything like Christmas, funnily enough. And the reason for that is because if you actually look at nature outside, you will see that there are a lot of natural combinations in the garden that involve different shades of pink to dark pink and into red and green. So the trick to it not being too Christmassy would be to use muted colours. So if you have a look, for example, the reds here, they're quite antiqued, dull colours, and I think sometimes if you use a material where you've got a texture and a pattern and you get these 2 tones here, so you've got the deeper reds with perhaps the lighter colours coming through, that breaks it up a little bit. So don't be afraid. I would encourage people not to be afraid of mixing red and green together. It's a beautiful combination, but I would also layer it with perhaps other colours like the chartreuse greens, maybe some soft dusky pinks and apricots, and maybe some dusky oranges. Then you really do diffuse that whole idea of it being anything too Christmassy. The other thing that I really love about this room is I have a bit of a gripe with radiators, especially if they're not antique old ones. And when bearing in mind that this house didn't have any heating, I had some very good radiators put in, but I don't like looking at them, and I don't particularly like painting them. So I like to mask them. And what I have done here is I've taken a beautiful half screen that I found in an antique shop, and I've placed it across the radiator, so it almost acts as a little background, again going back to that whole idea of layering coming from my set design days. So I'm layering behind the chairs to give a background, a pretty background, but actually there's a very practical reason there for me. I'm hiding the view of the radiator as well. What I learnt in moving to this very special property is the importance of understanding the atmosphere of a house. And by that I mean we bring our own energy into a house, but ultimately, particularly old buildings, they very much have their own character and personality, and you need to settle with the space. You need to learn to read the light. You need to understand how the light moves through the rooms in order to think about how you want to live in those spaces, how those spaces make you feel. And this was really part of this restorative process, was about understanding, how do I want to feel in this space? How do I want it to make me function on a daily basis? and how do I want to bring my narrative into it through colour, through natural light movement and through decor. So these are the sort of important elements that I bring to my work as a colour consultant. This house has really helped me understand the importance of narrative, story, light, and on the subject of light, my mother was a Tai Chi teacher and I grew up with quite a lot of Japanese influence in my life, very Taoist influence, which was a really interesting combination because she was Italian, but also I lived in an arts and crafts cottage. So all these extraordinary elements of understanding light, pattern, they were very much part of my heritage in how I understood design, texture, gardens, and how all of these elements can link together in creating spaces that are very, very personal to somebody. So the next room in the house is the dining area, and in order to transition really nicely into that space with the colours, given that I'm using a pink against a green, I've used a very subtle pink blanket on the edge of the sofa just to help the eye transition into the changing colour from this space into the next. So come with me and take a look at the dining room. Okay, so here we are inside the dining room. It's a small but really warm, cosy space which I've painted in a lovely shade of pink on the top with a slightly warmer colour on the panelling. These colours make me think of Italy, think of the Riviera, the beautiful colours of the buildings there. I'm totally transported in this space. The two key features of this room really are the table, which has beautiful claw and ball foot, and the sideboard here, the drawers. Both are my grandfather's from Italy, so these are very special pieces for me. I really love the painting on here, the colours, the delicate flowers. It's such a quirky, beautiful piece, and I use this to house my table linen, stationery, all the practical things that I might need. And then on top I have the Casa Pupa lamps, which I got from a client when I had my previous flower shop. She was getting rid of them. She hated anything from the 1950s and wanted everything modern. So I snapped these up because these are an absolute steal. They are pomegranates and they're just simply beautiful. The shades I found in a thrift store, so I changed the original shades, which were orange, to this lovely rich red, and for me it really, really works. And then scattered on the top are a collection of these beautiful gemstones, which I just think are really pretty, and I love layering with natural elements. So it doesn't have to be just botanicals, it can be minerals as well. And I think the treat on the top really is the ostrich egg, which again I found in another thrift store, and I absolutely love this. It's such a beautiful piece. So it sits here quite proudly as the only egg in the room. The dining table, I have memories of using this in Italy. The chairs I found from a friend who's a mid-century dealer. I think they work really well. Again, I love this soft muted red, which goes back to what I was saying before about if you're using red, try to go for colours sometimes that are a little bit aged and antiqued, like this colour here. And for winter, I always throw a really nice, comfortable sheepskin rug. So when my guests or when I'm sitting down here at the table and I've got the log fire on particularly, I just feel really, really cosy. These two chinoiserie panels are really extraordinary, and I'm yet to finish them off. I haven't quite decided how I'm going to do that. These are silk. It's black silk, and they've been hand painted with this beautiful scene of birds of paradise and flowers and greenery. They're just so delicate, but I particularly like the fact that they're on a black background. So I have two of them here, and I think what I might do at a future stage is put them inside a beautiful frame and have them glass mounted so I can put them up on the wall. And the other reason I like them in here is because they balance the black that comes from the antique Indian desk over here. This is a really special piece. It's probably about 200 years old and it has very useful storage. But what's particularly interesting, a friend of mine who's a gardener said that he thinks that it actually has cardamom leaves painted on it. So these could potentially be cardamom heads with little cardamom leaves. And I love the fact that this particular part of the desk is less worn than the rest of it, and that's because it usually sits up like this. On either side of the desk, I have these huge tall grasses which I once used on a styling job. The theme was something quite magical and mystical, and we were approaching winter, so I used a lot of these scattered around, and I just love the colour of them. I love the muted tones and how feathery and magical they look. I couldn't bear to get rid of them, so I've propped them on either side and they just about fit in with my low ceilings. And they beautifully frame a very special painting of a bird's nest here with the egg, and I have here an actual nest that I found that had fallen out of a tree. These are all mementos of early childhood memories to me, which have naturally come my way when I've been on sourcing trips. So this is quite a special little corner for me in a very different way to perhaps the other features of the room. Because I have the woodlands on my doorstep, often when I go out in the mornings or in the evenings, I can hear the woodpeckers. And here I have a vase which I think is probably about 1940s, 1950s. I found this vase which has the woodpecker on the edge of what is pretending to be a trunk, and these are ferns that I've picked from the local woodland and I've just left them to dry. So again, not only is it something that I think is really pretty to look at, but it's just reminding me of those moments when I go out for walks in the woodlands and the beauty of nature that I see. Over here in this cabinet I have a collection of wooden block prints, and they're all quite different. So at some point I'm really looking forward to the idea of getting them out, playing with my paint colours and maybe doing some block print work on silk or canvas or linen. I'm quite fond of those over there. And over here I have, on this little shelf here, a lovely collection of books that are to do with nature. So I've got geology, I've got birds of the British Isles, I've got stories called On the Nature Trail, woodland trees. These are all books that I've just found when I've been out and about, and I really like the way they play on those muted greens and reds and apricot colours. This is just my little nature corner over here. The style of my home is very eclectic, and this is because I don't adhere to any trend. I never have. I think it's really important to acquire things through time that speak to you on a personal level, and then eventually you can amalgamate all these things to actually create the style that's important to you. I've decorated my home definitely in a very colourful way, but what I really like about the colours I work with is that they can be quite deep and strong, but also quite muted and aged. So in a way, I really like to work with antiqued colours. So greens and reds and perhaps purples and browns that look like they've been aged with time. Some of the items I've inherited are from my Italian grandfather in Italy, which are very much statement items in the home. And the rest of the items are things that I've just acquired through my styling career, through my travels, things that I've looked at and thought, that's got a really interesting story and I want that to become part of mine. So I very rarely actually go to a shop to buy something new. Pretty much everything I have has either come from thrift markets, antique markets, auction houses, just things that I've not expected to find and that life has just tossed my way, a bit like opening a Pandora's box and just suddenly seeing something you think, I've got to have that. Going across the middle of this room is this original beam, supporting the upstairs part of the house, and I wanted to make it a feature. So I painted it black so it worked with my black panels, and I did something different for a change. I used a gloss so you could really see it. And then going across the top of it, I hung some hops. So if anybody hasn't ever used hops before, I really encourage you to use them. When they first arrived, they were still a little bit green and fresh, because when you order hops, usually they come quite fresh because that's when they're at their most supple and they can bend. The smell was absolutely intoxicating. It was just deliriously delicious. And I put them up, and you just leave them because then they dry and they crisp. And they've become quite a feature of the room now. So this is basically a hops ceiling. On one side here, I took the wallpaper down because I wanted to put a lime wash effect on the ceiling, and I wanted it to breathe, whereas on the other side it had been papered when I first renovated. So I've taken the paper down here as part of a second stage of restoring the building, which I've started to do by changing one wall here with the colour, going from a lime wash effect of a colour that I mixed myself using paints that I've got left over, so I get this slightly mottled effect on the walls, which I really, really love here. And then I mixed a slightly darker colour to set this off, as opposed to the flat colour which we've got on one side here. So this is my corner of experimenting with mixing colours, mixing my own paints, and going for an effect on a lime wash wall. The story with some of the African artifacts I've got around the house is a story that links me to my father, actually, who spent quite a lot of time living in Santa Fe and Albuquerque when I was a child. And I have collected some beautiful Cuba cloths which I have upstairs. And to complement the theme in another part of the house, I've collected a few of these African masks. I don't actually know the age of them, but what I do know is that they are perhaps some of the more beautiful ones that I've seen. And so I've placed them on either side here. And my father was always interested in different cultures, and I remember that he used to collect things from South America and African drums or African musical instruments. So over here I just have this little ode to him, really. I would consider that my style is a little bit maximalist, but also in a way where I like there to be calm within it. So the maximalist element of my style very much comes from building layers, and I really enjoy building layers in 3D. So I like building them in depth or in height. But within those layers, I like there to be some kind of calm scattered about. So the maximalist part of me doesn't necessarily apply to having a room completely overwhelmed with lots of visual distraction. So there's sometimes a joke with the back room being a bistro, because in the evening, particularly when I've got the log fire on and I've got all the side lighting on, I tend to light all the candles. This old house, I'm not too precious about candle wax. I love candles on everywhere. So there will be candle wax on the floor, on the surfaces. I'm not too precious about it because really it is the memory of the evening. So I tend to collect candle sticks, different ones, wood, metal. You can see from the condition of the wax on them how well they get used. So this room is very, very cozy, it's very snug, and when guests come, they feel like they're in a slightly different world as well. You go back in time, and it's definitely an experience. My professional journey to becoming a colour consultant is quite a long and varied one. Colour consultancy didn't really exist as a profession about 25 years ago. But I realised over a course of time that by default I had been operating with colour through a number of different disciplines. So I originally trained in set design, And set design was something very fundamental to the way I understood to read the world. As a child, I went to the ballet a lot, to the theatre a lot, so I was used to seeing lots of layers. Also, I was very involved in gardening. I grew up with a very huge kitchen garden that I was very much involved in. So I learned to read space through layers. That journey took me into floristry, where I then had 3 separate floristry shops, and again working with colour combinations even more, except this time flowers being used for events, but any kind of event. So I began to understand that colour was relative to emotion and purpose, and through those businesses I then started doing styling for people's homes as well. I worked a little bit with mid-century design, as well as selling and collecting antiques to sell. And eventually, when I had a little antique emporium in Hampstead, I started to consider maybe I want to start using some paints in my shops, and that was really the starting point for stepping out of my little antiques business and floristry business into the world of colour. My mantra to colour is read the light of a room. I think it's totally fine if you're somebody who loves bright, vivid colours, or if you're somebody who likes really calm, soft whites. I work with people who love all different types of colours for their home. But the one thing that I always bring to my consultancy services and that I encourage people to think about at home is read the light, because the way you understand light in your home can really help you understand how you want the nuances or the hues to change, so that you can create either that really bold combination you want or that very soft, subtle one, which has a relationship with the light in a room. So my mantra is read the light of the room. So the room adjoining the dining room is the kitchen, which was formerly the bathroom when I first took the property on. It was a space that had 2 little hallways off of it as well, which was crazy. It was really, really small. So in order to flip the bathroom to the upstairs, this is the space that I decided to dedicate for the kitchen. So come through, I'd love to show you more. This is one of the smallest rooms in the house, but it is perhaps one of the most intense in terms of what happens here. Because of my Italian heritage and being involved with a kitchen garden, this space I deliberately chose to be very, very calm in terms of colour. So I mixed a colour myself and painted it on the walls, which is a very warm coppery brown. It picks up on the hues of the old copper pots that I have tucked away in the wall over there. And to pull in my Italian aesthetic, I'm using white, very plain white tiles here, which is what my grandmother had in her kitchen. In Italy, long, long time ago, there wasn't the privilege of having lots of tiles to choose from. People just used very simple white tiles, but I really like the simplicity of them. But the piece that really sings in here is the massive credenza, which is my grandfather's. I brought this back from Italy, and I'll never forget the day when it arrived. The guys turned up with the truck, with all the furniture, and they said, it's not going to go, it's not going to go. It came in 2 pieces, and I said, it is going to go, because it simply had to. There was just not the negotiation of it not moving in. And it just so happens that because, like all the walls and ceilings in the house, which are wonky, this particular corner here, you can't even fit a piece of paper in. The credenza literally was made for the kitchen. And this is where I house all my plates, my glasses, my dry products, my pots and pans, my cutlery. One of the things I like the most about it is that it's the perfect worktop height for me, because I'm quite tall. So I like my worktop higher than the average worktop height. And it's a brilliant surface for me to just show off my very prized collection of walnut jug pots, which are very, very old, very, very special, and they just sit here and make the place look interesting without being over cluttered. It's the biggest piece in the kitchen, and it meant that I didn't have to go for the formality of a fitted kitchen, which I just don't like. I wanted something that was quite rustic and very simple. So I've paired the credenza with a freestanding cooker and a trolley which houses all the bits I need for cooking, and then a beautiful Italian marble worktop and a screen of material which basically hides the washing machine, the dishwasher and the tumble dryer. So I have an antique Hellbay fork which I use as a hanger for my various aprons, and I saw it once on a styling shoot and I just thought it was a really clever idea. So in order to hide it, I just hang it over the door, and I use it as a brilliant storage place to hang a linen apron and a couple of really old leather ones. You can also actually use it to slot your glasses in. So if you were to tilt it against a wall like that, you can turn your glasses, wine glasses, upside down, and you could actually use it as a quirky glass storage system for a kitchen. So one of the reasons I wanted the kitchen to remain quite calm with its colours, very natural and rustic, the colours of the pots, such as the three I've got over here, for example, is because I really wanted the emphasis to come from flavour and aroma. And I actually love cooking some of the simplest dishes, the ones that require not too much fuss, but cooked right, they taste the best to me. So I love cooking polenta, and I love cooking a really beautiful tomato sauce, or perhaps a ragu. I've always got shallots, onions and tomatoes in the kitchen because they are my staple. So long as I've got those, I can pretty much have, I pretty much know I've got anything I can make to cook. So my staple, my favourite food to cook, particularly when I want a little bit of comforting, is probably a really simple pasta dish drizzled with beautiful aromatic olive oil, maybe a little bit of dried thyme, this is from Sardinia, some garlic and some shallots and onions, just slow cooked, beautiful, really delicious. It's so difficult for me to think if I have a favourite colour because I love so many. But I definitely have a tendency towards greens. Everything is on the table for me when it comes to colour because colour teaches me to read the world in different ways that I might not have before. I used to have a real issue with white. I used to find it incredibly dull, incredibly boring, and it never really quite delivered for me. But I've learnt more recently that the different hues and nuances in white can really elevate a space in a way that I never anticipated before. So there isn't really a colour that I can say I won't touch. I actually love them all. So there's a lot more going on upstairs and I would love to show you what I've done. So come and join me. So I'm at the top of the stairs, and the two features which I really love about the stairwell, which is very small, is that I have the original lime walls here, which have beautiful shades of murky, muddy yellows. So I didn't want to paint those. I've left those, and they are a great backdrop for this collection of bird prints and some butterflies that I've picked up on other travels in various antique shops. And to finish them off, I've put them inside this huge gold gilt frame that I picked up from a friend. It just seemed a huge wall and a great space to put a massive frame in what is otherwise a really narrow stairwell, and then to fill the big frame with lots of little frames. So I thought that was quite a clever, quirky trick. And then at the top of the stairs, I am straight into my dressing area, which used to be a room, a small bedroom. But in order to get my grandfather's huge wardrobe in, which is the wardrobe to the chest of drawers downstairs, I actually had to move away some of the panelling that was the rim divider in order to get this in. So I absolutely love this piece. It's got the painting on it, and the colours are just absolutely brilliant. And this space is south facing, so it gets a lot of sun in here. It's a great space just to get ready I have also my mother's mirror on this side of the wall, which is an old antique piece. And to add my own touch here, I've made this colour here, and I've made the colour on the wall. So I've used a paler shade on the walls as an emulsion, and I've used an eggshell here on the woodwork. And the colours of the story are inspired by my green kimono. I love collecting kimonos. I've got quite a few, but this is one of my more recent ones, and I love the colours of this. So I've used this as the inspiration to make the colour on the wall, a muted version of it. And the lampshades are made by me. So these were plain white lampshades, lamp bases, and I used various colours of green and blue from the colours that I'd mixed downstairs to wash over them and to add in the streaks. And what I really like about them, particularly at night when it's dark outside, is that the colour comes through the parts of the material where it hasn't quite saturated into the linen. So if I turn it off, for example, you'll see it disappears, and then when I turn the light on, the colour comes through. So that was an unexpected surprise, which I really liked. This is a statue from Italy again. She actually came on a very tall plinth and I couldn't fit her in here. So she was a statue from my grandfather's apartment. I think she's probably about 150 years old. She got a little bit damaged in her transportation, but she's very happy there. And every time I look at her, I just think of Liguria in Italy, and I just think of that sense of being so happy when you see the sun and the beautiful colours of Italy and being by the sea. I love vintage luggage. I think luggage makes really good storage spaces for things that you don't really want to see out, such as hairdryers, brushes, all that sort of paraphernalia. So I use two here to store items. I've also got another really lovely one here, which I inherited, which has stickers from travels all around the world. I think it's such a lovely, quirky piece. Again, storing items which I want to keep but don't necessarily want to use on a daily basis. In the wardrobe, which has the long hanging space, is where I keep my kimono collection. And I tend to use these sometimes for styling shoots, sometimes for my colour consultancies. They're very old. I don't really have a favourite one because I love them all. And I think what's great about them is that you can wear them with jeans, you can wear them just as they are. They keep you warm, but they also keep you cool because they're silk. And you can jazz them up with a really funky belt, even some cowboy boots or flat shoes or some heels. They're just absolutely great. I get a lot of colour inspiration from these, and in fact this is exactly why I chose the colours on the wall here, inspired by the green kimono. And also when mixing belts with them, such as vintage pieces of silk, so you could take something like this fantastic pink and tie it around the green kimono and maybe have a pair of pink shoes or a clutch bag or some earrings that match with the pink, and you've just got an outfit straight away with minimal effort. It's just brilliant for me. It works. I love it. Most people who are going on a colour journey when they're renovating or decorating are undergoing a change in life. Now that could simply be that they're moving home, but that is a change in a chapter of their life. In some cases, people have separated or split up. That's another change. Or perhaps they're going from just 2 to 3 with the arrival of a child. And I'm very sensitive to this when I walk into somebody's home. Usually the colours that people want or need tend to be relative to the situation they are in or the situation they want to grow into. So sometimes when I'm with couples, I have to mediate between one partner wanting a colour a certain way and another partner wanting a colour a different way, and then reaching that middle ground or that compromise in helping them understand how they might want to live in this space together. This So the room that you can see behind me is the master bedroom, and when I first bought the house, when you came to the top of the stairs, the bedroom door started here because of the wood panelling wall that was dividing this bedroom here, which is now the dressing area. So when I reconfigured the space, it enabled me to bring the bedroom door further back to here, allowing a hallway to the reconfigured bathroom, which we'll have a look at later. So come into the bedroom, I'd love to show you. This space here is south facing and has just the most glorious sun in the afternoon. And so the colour that I used on the wall was a very rich amethyst, and the reason for that is because it reminds me of the rich colours in the sunset sky in Liguria. Over the sea there is a certain type of lilac that appears at sunset, and it gets deeper and deeper and deeper at night, and it's that colour that I wanted to capture. So I've washed the walls in that colour, whereas for the woodwork I've used something a little more contrasting, which is quite pared back and goes really well with the Cuba cloths, like this one here, for example, that I was explaining earlier on as part of my African collection. I have quite a few of these, but here's just one example that I drape over the doors. I love to drape material over doors. I think it's a great way of accessorising a door, which is otherwise just very plain and simple. So I always encourage people to drape beautiful fabrics or textiles over doors. In this case, I'm using Cuba cloths, and I have another framed version here. And then I think one of the best features for my bedroom here is similarly to the downstairs living room where I have that woodland scene. I have here a collection of images which every single painting I've sourced from a charity shop find. I've thrown these up on the wall in a slightly random way, but at the same time trying to balance colour. So for example, you will see that I have a lot of green and purple and blue here, but I've balanced it with a painting on the left-hand side that's quite heavy with the greens and the blues as well. So they are randomly put up in terms of how the space will allow it, allow the painting to go up. And they're generally scenes of buildings in places or the human form, such as the angels down there as well. And another one down here. And they vary in age, so some of them are antique, some of them are mid-century, and some of them are contemporary. One of the favourite ones that I like to look at is the one that I see the first thing in the morning and the last thing at night when I go to bed, and that is the scene of Portofino, which is where I like to visit when I go to Liguria. Again, another charity shop find. It was a real thrift buy. And I remember when I saw it, it had lots of frames in front of it, and all I could see was this top part here. And I just knew straight away that's Portofino. And sure enough, when I pulled away all the other frames, there it was. So that's what I like to wake up to and go to sleep to every day. And I have one more very small salting pot in the bedroom to the collection downstairs, and that fits really neatly inside the fireplace there. Because I like to layer, and I like to layer vertically as well as horizontally, I've used over in the corner of the room one of the antique water vessels I have, and I like to just keep a very simple display of either eucalyptus leaves, maybe a rose. In this case, I've got some branches with some spring buds that have come on there. It's very simple, but it's very effective for me. I absolutely love the whole philosophy behind the concept of home. It's something that I've studied and focused on for a very long time. And that's partly because I've moved so many times over the past 20 years, and each time I've tried to find the essence of what actually makes a home a home. And what I've come to realise in the later years is the essence of a home is really what your story is with it, and how you feel that you are translating that through colour and through the objects that you collect. It is so important to have a narrative with your home, with your space, because nobody else is going to have the same home as you. So it's really important that you can get your inspiration from magazines and from online platforms, but you need to be able to edit those choices and curate it in a way that makes it a soulful one for you, so that you can have that story with your home. And there you have it. You have what I've called an aesthetic narrative, and that's something that I specialise in and try to help people achieve. What is their aesthetic narrative, the soul of their home? What I love most about my home is the movement of light and the mood of it. It's a very soulful space. It has dark moments and it has bright moments. So without doubt, what I love most about my home is the way the light moves throughout it, which gives me a chance to experience the spaces in different ways throughout different times of the day, and indeed throughout different times of the year. So adjoining the bedroom is the bathroom, which has a little lobby with an antique mirror from Italy and a couple of sea scenes, paintings. And then you come through to the bathroom, which is slightly different in colour, and that's because I had one rule, which was I wanted the decorative objects and the colours that I used to remind me of my childhood in Italy when I used to swim in the sea in Sardinia. And so the colour that I chose for the tiles is a very particular type of chartreuse that reminds me of swimming through seaweed in Sardinia. There's a spot where I sometimes go. The colour of the seaweed is so particular, and when you swim through it, you are literally submerging yourself into this beautiful chartreuse. So the green tiles have variations of this colour, so it's not a block colour, it's not a matte colour, there are different degrees of the colour in there. So when I'm in that space, I'm literally submerged again into the seaweed. And to kind of play on that a little bit more, I've got this fantastic succulent plant which really does look like some of the seaweed. And just like the rest of the house where I have themes, I have more themed paintings here which are of sea scenes, shells, boats, random pictures that I found in random places again, and I love to do that maximalist thing of overloading the space with lots of paintings, whereas the antique bookcase here holds some of my most prized corals and shells and sea urchins. The sea urchins are in fact what I used to dive for in Italy, so I have lots of these just sitting around, and quirky books such as The Wonders of the Shore and some antique corals that I've picked up, and the abalone shells. I used to play with the abalone shells actually, like marbles in the beach in the sand. And I think the drama of the bathroom here really is using the curtains instead of shower curtains, which I pull over a little bit more when I'm having a bath. I light all my candles in there, and it's just an experience. It's really relaxing, it's beautiful lighting, and it just really gets me ready to shut down for the day. The candle holders here are the fleur-de-lis symbol, which is again playing on my surname, and a bit like the grate in the fireplace downstairs. They were a gift from an interior designer friend, and they're great. They work really well for me. And I didn't want a conventional bathroom, just like the kitchen isn't conventional, so I sourced a cabinet that was the right size for me and a fantastic large basin, and had that mounted on top. So again, it's that very relaxed look in the bathroom, and I've put two of my very old urns from my very early floristry days that I've kept, and they decorate the windowsill just right for me. In the corner I've got a couple of oars, boat oars, which I thought was quite a quirky little touch, and a great sea scene again of a woman by the water. When I was designing the bathroom, I decided to use the original panelling that I found behind some stud work in the wall here when I was repairing. So this panelling here was actually the original woodwork used on the inside of the wall here. Not so much at the time the property was built, more so when it was probably renovated a long time ago, but it was so beautiful with the variations in the colour that instead of disposing of it, I decided to adapt it so I could use it as the panelling for the bath instead of having a conventional panelling or plastic even. This bathroom really does set me up for the day. It's a great space to come into. I find it very relaxing and invigorating at the same time. The word home to me means a space where I can transport myself to beautiful memories of my past, things that I cherish, and a space where I can grow as a person.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content, shopping guides, and so much more.